President of the United States. Who is this? Is it you again?
Look behind you.
This is my private line. How did you get through?
They're everywhere. All the time. We see them every day. But you have to look behind you.
There is nothing behind me. How did you get this number?
The spaceman told me.
What spaceman?
It doesn't matter. I'm telling you about monsters. Please, you must look behind you.
Young lady, there are no monsters in the Oval Office.
The loudspeaker spoke up and said,
Wait, Sammy.
the loudspeaker spoke up and said,
Wait,
the loudspeaker spoke up and said, give up, give up, give up, give up, give up.
Wait, Sammy. Wait, Sammy. Wait, Sammy.
I'm Clyde Lewis, and this is Ground Zero. Ground Zero coming to you live, loud and clear from FM News 101 KXL in Portland, Oregon. Tonight we're loading the internet and loading the phones. 503-417-9595. That's 9KXL or 1-877-733-1011. Tonight's show is going to be a spectacular show. I just know it. I feel it. We actually are right now working on a number of things. We were today at the park where Occupy Portland was going on. We talked with a few people there, a lot of listeners there who were asking me questions. I was asking them questions. We have Joni DeRoshi currently working on a video for us that's going to be produced and placed online. We already have Rod Harrell's video. It's available online as well that he produced, that the Ground Zero Media Group produced, and we're very excited to be bringing you the up-to-the-minute and up-to-date reports from the Occupy Portland groups. And I believe that what we're producing is we're producing a raw version of this, and so we're very excited to be producing those for you. We got so many things that we're in the middle of right now, it's hard to even touch the surface. We'll try to touch all that tonight, but tonight, I don't think we're going to wait too long. We got to get right to our guest tonight on Ground Zero. You know, I find it ironic that at this time I'm bringing my guest on tonight, Cliff High. The reason why I find it ironic is because of the fact that we are now mourning the loss of Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple Computers. He gave us the Apple, which is an offering that has always been a symbol of knowledge in the same breath it represented the downfall of mankind. But the computer itself is expanding. It is an expanding tool. And even though we play games on it and use it for the iPhone, iPad, whatever, or we use it for a Droid, or we have other reasons for using it, Cliff High has taken it to a new level. And I've always been intrigued by the half-past human group that Cliff High represents. Cliff High has a patent on computer-assisted reading technology, which allows reading from computer screens at up to 2,000 words per minute. And what he does with this is he uses the computer as a tool to tap into the collective consciousness. This is something that's remarkable. And one of the things that you may know about Cliff is that he made the news when in June of 2001, he was using his technology to project a major tipping point in this country, a life-changing event, a military accident of some kind that would forever change the way we live here in the United States. That, of course, was the September 11th attacks. He has, after that, been able to use the Internet as a tool to approximate the future. And it's a remarkable thing to be able to look over the materials that he has and to see that he is on the right track. Tonight, we welcome to Ground Zero Cliff High. Cliff, thank you so much for being on Ground Zero tonight.
Yeah, sure. No worries at all.
And it's very good to have you here. I want, for those I'm sure there are a lot of people listening on the internet tonight that are aware of who you are. But for my audience that's unaware of who you are, give us a little bit of background on who you are and what you have done and what you've accomplished with the computer using it as an oracle.
Well, it isn't the computer per se that's the oracle. That's a common misconception. I just use the computer to gather up the basic psychic flotsam that leaks out of everybody's daily conversation and aggregate it into a large enough mass that it can sort of make sense. So really, it's all the humans that are the psychic oracles. They just don't know it, and they're sort of like a billion or more antennas running around there who have a few stray signals that happen to land on the internet. And my computer software really is, most of it's rather mundane. I mean, there's about 300 executables involved, but most of it is just simply gathering and hunting kind of Perl scripts that going out in search for a certain combination of things relative to my lexicon, but basically it's a data mining operation. The real interesting part is that I used Prolog in a SQL Server database to construct a not self-aware but self-altering smart database that helps me filter out tens, hundreds of millions of conversations to get the really juicy bits that then go into our reports. And this that sort of started at the end, but let's start way back at the beginning. I was working I was a computer software engineer, worked my way up from doing coding, and got to the point where I was doing consulting on various different kinds of software problems. And one day had a consulting problem that led me to think about language in a different way, and over the course of the next 10 years, I evolved and eventually coded this particular software project that everybody calls the WebBots. I never called it that. That was George Ure, by the way.
Oh, George Ure called it the WebBots.
And it stuck. I knew it at the time. I was like, I knew it was going to stick, and I knew from that point on it was, worthless to fight it.
So these WebBots crawl through the internet, crawl through the consciousness.
That's the spiders. I mean,
the spiders.
I'm a linguist, so we need to be a little bit precise. But
no problem.
The spiders sit there and they run on servers. They used to crawl from server to server, but basically they just sit on our servers now and call all these internet pages to them and sort of digest the pages and spew out the good stuff into a database, which is then further digested by other software until it goes into a very thick, syrupy mass of words that resolve themselves curiously on their own, more or less, into various different kinds of archetypes from which we can make projections about the general shape of what might be coming, and that's why we call it the Shape of Things to Come report. Would it be like scrying those words? Are you scrying? I'm familiar with that, and I don't think so, because that involves... my understanding of that, and I've done some research in it, is that involves the mental context of the person doing the work, very much as though the Oracle of Delphi can't be the prophecies from that individual can't be separated from the individual making those prophecies.
Right.
Another individual under the same circumstances may make something else entirely out of that information. There is some small element of that in what we do here, but the vast amount of data that is brought from which that element arrives is done entirely by machine, and so I see it, my cohorts see it, and it's the same data. It's just I seem to have a little bit of a knack for being able to zero in on what's going to be more important than not.
Yeah, I was looking over a PDF that was sent to me by Olaf Phillips, and I was reading through it, and I noticed that it seemed to me that as I was reading through it, there was a lot of raw data that was in there. The interpretations almost were up to you. I mean, what I mean is, speaking of myself, I was looking at the interpretations. You give the guide, but the interpretations themselves come from within. And so as I was reading it, I was going, wow, this is looking pretty accurate. In fact, there was actually a part that I thought was really funny when they were, and excuse this, but it was something that caught my eye. The idea that people would be on television and they would be finding themselves in situations where they would be profusely sweating or somehow not being able to find the right words to speak. And also, you talk about the uncontrollable bladder or uncontrollable bowel habits or whatever they're on. And I was laughing at that because recently, well, we've been seeing a lot of reporters who were unable to form sentences, and that's been in the news a while back. But also there's this mystery, I don't know if people are aware of it, I was laughing out loud at this mystery about, I guess it's Dancing with the Stars and Nancy Grace, I guess, cutting a big one on ABC TV. So I was watching that going, God, it even has that in there, and I was interpreting the data relating to that. I hate to start off with that, but it was just so peculiar to me how it stuck out, and how I was actually reading a story that dealt with that very thing that that you had listed as a possibility of what will be what would be happening in the future, transpiring in the future.
Well, it's it shouldn't be that surprising, because really we're not forecasting events so much as we are linguistics. So we're forecasting the words that will be impacting you in the future, and that is the elegance and the beauty of it, and also its chief failing. Because see, here's the problem: if everybody on the planet, 3 weeks from now, 3 weeks from this coming Thursday, everybody on the whole planet got together and they all thought of flying plates of spaghetti, then we today, if we were to run my program, would be able to forecast that everybody on the planet would be talking about a giant attack by flying plates of spaghetti. But in fact, it's going to occur that it was, a conspiracy to trick us, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm, exactly.
See, we can't tell the difference from this perspective. What we get is, in George Muir's description of it, which is not that off, we get a dark view of a newspaper briefly flashed through a dirty window.
Well, at least you're honest, right? But it seems, I mean, what?
And we make the best of that we can.
But if it is a newspaper at all, it's the first edition. It's the early edition, if you want to get technical. That's what you got, and it's amazing, because I was looking over and I couldn't stop reading all of the technical terms, the key words and phrases, and all of the things sticking out there, the interpretations, and some of the things that were even that were in print that I was seeing are things now. I mean, this I guess was released in June, what I was reading, and that everything that you released in June seems to be approximating. And what I mean by that is that it's there, and I don't think anybody can be 100% to the detail. But I do know that if certain key phrases and key words are there and you see them, you're like going, wait a minute. But then again, I'm immersed in the internet every day. I was just reading that the other day, or I was just seeing that the other day, and it just seems like and as you're pointing out with what you do, we see a lot of patterns in the consciousness with the internet and what happens with the internet.
Correct. And also I need to point out that because we deal in language, there is an inherent ambiguity. That ambiguity comes within the context that each of us hold any given individual word or phrase within our emotional understanding. This is the core of our work, by the way, is trying to ferret out the nuance of understanding attached to an emotional level to words. But because of that ambiguity, some individuals will interpret some of the words that come from the data with a level of emotional strength greater than I would or greater than someone else would. And so we have a natural level of disagreement within the structure of language itself. If, for instance, we were able to do this work entirely mathematically and resolve it all into the language of numerals, then the level of inbuilt discrepancy would be very small indeed, and we would get almost precise views of the future. Can't happen because we don't think or speak in numbers.
Exactly.
But at this stage, that's really one of its inherent limitations. And the other one we need to note is that we will always have a tendency to fail towards the direction of the more extreme case, because we began with the English language, and the English language, as with all of those that derive from a mixture of the Germanic and the Romance languages, we have a tendency to express the worst case easier than we do the best case. So
right.
We more frequently use words that are on the nastier side of life than the more positive side of life. Therefore, we collect more of those. Therefore, our view is tainted.
Cliff High is my guest tonight on Ground Zero, Half Past Human and the WebBot Project. You're going to hear more about this tonight. Fascinating stuff from Cliff High. I'm looking forward to having him on my program, and I want to introduce you to the Internet, reintroduce you to the Internet. As I was saying before, we have Steve Jobs, who passed away a few days ago at age 56, brought to us the computer, the apps for the computer and all those things. But now we take the computer to the next level. I've always said that if we were to take the consciousness, both the profane and the reverent that's on the internet, put it in a box, we'd have God. Maybe Cliff is tapping into something that's bigger than all of us. We'll be back with more. Keep it here on Ground Zero.
Got an opinion? Call KXL now. 503-417-9KXL or 877-733-1011.
We need an energy that we can count on, one that's cleaner and more affordable, a domestic resource that's here for the long haul. We need this energy to be reliable, to warm our water and cook our food and heat our homes, no matter what's happening outside. This energy exists. We call it Blue, and it points the way to a better future. Blue energy from Northwest Natural, also known as natural gas. Efficient, affordable. Blue.
Handyman Bob here to tell you a little housewarming story. Late last year, we had an energy audit, including a blower door test, and learned that our 110-year-old house leaked air like a sieve. I hired the guys from Westside Drywall and Insulation to do what's called a drill and fill to get some insulation in the exterior walls, and at the same time had them seal up the furnace ducts to make sure all the forced air actually reached the heat registers instead of leaking out into the basement. Over breakfast the next morning, my wife told me she had to take a blanket off the bed during the night because the house was so much warmer. The reason I use Westside and recommend them to you is that they know energy saving includes a lot more than just adding insulation. And as a trade ally contractor of Energy Trust of Oregon, they can help with cash incentives and state energy tax credits to improve the energy efficiency of your home under CCB license 71044. You know, you'll be healthier, more comfortable, and save money with your home sealed. Get a quote from them today by visiting their website, westsidedrywall.com.
Coach Matt Burke here. Small business owners, you can talk a good game when it comes to your financials, but the truth is you probably don't know jack about finance. Studies show that as many as 80% of small businesses don't use or understand financial statements. This often results in extra costs, lower margins, reduced access to capital, and worse. But there's an easy and affordable way to get a grip on your business financials. At Finance Coach, we provide detailed financial analysis, budgets and projections, industry comparisons, financial coaching, and more, so you can focus on what you do best, running your business. Join us for a free educational webinar to learn why small business owners don't know jack about finance and what you can do to make 2012 your best year yet. Just text the word coach to 818181. That's COACH to 818181, and here's to your success. FinanceCoach.me, all major carriers supported. Message and data rates may apply. For terms and conditions, visit fairwayamerica.com.
I need 5,000 full-color brochures designed, printed, folded, and delivered.
Phoenix Media does it. High quality and fast turnaround.
I just need 50 posters.
At Phoenix Media, no job is too big or too small. They work with every need and budget.
I want to work with a nationally recognized firm, but with hometown values.
Phoenix Media works with clients all over the country, but they're based right here in Portland on Southeast 11th.
Sounds like I found my new one-stop print shop.
Phoenix Media, Southeast 11th, and online at phoenixmedia.com.
Handyman Bob here with a question for you. Is your bathtub so dated or your kitchen countertop so ugly and worn that you're not having the relatives over for the holidays? Go ahead, plan a party. Miracle Method can have your ugly bathtub, tile surround, and kitchen countertops looking like new again and ready for the holidays. It takes just days, not weeks, and you'll save up to 75% over traditional replacement costs. Your guests will be impressed, and you'll love the price. Call them today, 503-256-3405.
CCB number 45395.
Clyde Lewis on FM News 101 KXL.
Business as usual in the apocalypse. Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis.
I wonder if in the future if you'll have an app for the apocalypse. Cliff Hyde's my guest tonight on Ground Zero, 5:30. We're talking about how his whole discovery came to be and the idea of using the internet as a way to look into the future and to assign, I guess you could say, pointers and approximate the future using linguistics and things you see on the internet, remarkable stuff. So why did you first start this? What was the purpose for starting this type of technology?
Well, I was just intrigued by a new way of thinking about language relative to how we store it in computers. It goes back to this particular assignment I ran into with this giant, huge operation software in the early days of the computerization, which is to say the late 90s or late 80s and early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And they had this giant corporation with 119,000 desks that they had to manage all of the gear, the computers, the pens, the pencils, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had to store all of this. And they had what was known in the lingo of the time as an operational failure. The software they developed worked. It was just fine. But it took 3 weeks to respond to anybody's request because there was just so much crud in it.
Right.
And the computers at the time weren't that good at it. So I started thinking, well, this is really silly. Mostly this database is stored with, it's chock full of the same words over and over and over again. And really, there aren't, hundreds and millions of words that we need to store. That was, when I looked at it, I think there were about 140,000 words we needed to store, which is nothing in terms of hunting in a server, even back in the days of, Windows 98, that kind of thing. So it was just a matter of reorganizing it. And then I started thinking about language in general. It got me onto this whole idea that, well, wait a second, there's all different kinds of stuff that goes on in linguistics that we use every day that doesn't make sense unless there is an impetus for us to change our language for some reason other than the circumstances in which that language finds itself, which is a weird way of saying that we are emotional creatures that are driven by emotions that are sometimes independent of the circumstances in which we find ourselves. And so you may be typing in a cooking forum and you're talking about the pie that you had made, and for whatever reason you feel a certain way and you feel compelled to kick out a new word. And that's what had me curious. Why use that word rather than the regular word?
That's fascinating because I remember when I read the Bible in Spanish, I got more out of it than when I read it in English because of the fact that there's more emotion in the Latin language than there is in the English language.
The passionata, yeah.
Yeah, it just seems...
There's also the issue of the timing also. That's a key thing, too, in Latin-based as opposed to the Germanic-based English, is how time is dealt with.
Right, because because the Latins describe love in many forms, and each one has a different emotion attached to it with the words, anyway, te quiero, te amo, those types of things. And I just find that there's so much emotion that you can't capture in the English language that you can in other languages, and vice versa. That's why it's so wonderful that using this linguistics and everything, you can look over the words that are being used and what emotions are being carried with them. Cliff High is my guest tonight on Ground Zero. If you have any questions tonight, 503-417-9595. That's 9KXL, or outside of the Portland, Oregon area, you can call us toll-free at 1-877-733-1011. A lot of people in chat tonight. You can also come from chat and call us at 1-877-733-1011 tonight with Cliff High. We'll be back with more. Keep it here on Ground Zero.
FM News 101 KXL.
Oregon's largest radio news staff.
The station that delivers the most traffic and weather.
Breaking news.
In-depth segments.
Live and local, 24/7.
News weekday mornings and afternoons.
Fox News, News Radio 101 FM KXL.
In 1977, in Johannesburg, South Africa, an 8-year-old boy picked up the game of golf from his father. By the age of 9, he was already outplaying him. The odds of that same boy then making it to the US and European Pro Golf Tours? 1 in 7 million. The odds of the Big Easy winning the Open Championship once and the US Open Championship twice? 1 in 780 million. The odds of this professional golfer having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 110. Ernie Els encourages you to learn the signs of autism at autismspeaks.org. Early diagnosis can make a lifetime of difference. Autism Speaks. It's time to listen. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
The most news, the most traffic, the most weather, 24/7. This is FM News 101 KXL.
KXL News Time 9:30. Fox News Radio, I'm Pam Puso. More fallout over a botched federal operation known as Fast and Furious. 10 Arizona sheriffs calling for Attorney General Eric Holder to step down.
The sheriffs called it a betrayal of law enforcement officers for the federal government to allow guns to flow illegally across the Mexican border, even if the aim was to trace the weapons to drug cartels.
Fox Radio's Steve Taylor, Holder under fire over when he knew about the program. Listeria-tainted cantaloupes have claimed 21 lives, according to federal health officials. More than 100 people have been sickened. The St. Louis Cardinals one step closer to the World Series. They beat Philadelphia in the playoffs.
This is really special because we could have given up and we didn't give up.
Cardinals manager Tony La Russa. The Cards will play the Brewers next. Milwaukee topped the Arizona Diamondbacks in their National League Division Series. Fox News, we report, you decide.
From Portland's breaking news, traffic, and weather station, FM News 101 KXL, I'm David Martin. Good evening. Thanks for choosing FM News 101 KXL. And more Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis coming up in just a bit right now. It's Portland's most traffic 24/7, no problems to pass along on I-5. That includes down in the Wilsonville area through the curves and also Delta Park. On the east side, I-84, the Banfield, just a 6-minute drive between 205 and I-5, that each way. You'll bunch up just a little bit at 28th each direction, but no real delays. And no delays on I-205. On the west side, Sunset, no delays near 185th, and you're smooth between 217 and 405 each direction, and 217 is also trouble-free. And Matt Spino has your KXL forecast.
The rain this weekend is pretty well timed unless you're running the Portland Marathon, because we'll probably have some light rain left over from Saturday night around then. But Saturday looks partly sunny and nice with a high of 66, little morning fog. Then after the rain early Sunday morning, we get sun breaks and a high of 64 Sunday afternoon. More rain Monday and Tuesday. I'm KGW News Channel 8 meteorologist Matt Safino for KXL.
Hanging in there at 56 in Portland right now. News happens fast. Check back a couple of 3-4 times a day and don't miss a thing. Set a button for FM News 101 KXL.
Unlike airplane seats, your couch cushions do not become flotation devices should you have a water landing in your home. Hi, this is Sandy with DNF Plumbing. Anytime you have unwanted water in your home is the ideal time to call DNF Plumbing. Leaks showing up on your basement floors, under kitchen sinks, continual drips from faucets, and running toilets are what we fix. We're Portland's third-generation plumbing family. Just call 503-282-0993. And remember, D for drip, F for faucet.
You've seen pictures of me. You know I love to eat, but having good quality food is what really makes dinner, breakfast, and lunch taste great. Well, here's where we shop. Butcher Boys, the award-winning Butcher Boys shop. And guess what? Not only can they supply your family with all the steaks and all the meats that your family needs, but they do award-winning wild game processing. So as you head into hunting season, I'm going out for a deer and an elk myself this fall. Go to Butcher Boys. They've got fast turnaround time. You're not going to be waiting weeks to get that jerky back. Butcher Boys is my place to go for meat, pork, beef, chicken, and sausage, and of course, whole hams. It's an old-fashioned cut-to-order butcher shop. You know, it's owned by a family. I met the father and son who run it. They're out there on East 4th Plain Boulevard in Vancouver. You really should stop by and check out their website, butcherboys.com. That's Butcher Boys on East 4th Plain in Vancouver. Or give them a call, 360-693-6241. That's 693-6241.
More with Clyde Lewis and Ground Zero Radio on FM News 101 KXL.
Perhaps you had better start from the beginning.
Ground Zero.
Perhaps you had better start from the beginning.
As usual, and avoid panic buying. Shop as usual, and avoid panic buying.
You've got a good beginning. Perhaps you had better start from the beginning.
We not responsible for dizziness, shortness of breath, nausea, or skin irritation while listening to this program. If you experience bright flashes of light or head pain, an attendant will come to your home and escort you to the decontamination facility.
Look, I know the supernatural is something that isn't supposed to happen, but it does happen.
You are listening to the Ground Zero National Paranormal Network.
I'm Clyde Lewis, Ground Zero, right here in Portland, Oregon. FM News 101 KXL. The numbers to call tonight, 503-417-9595. That's 9KXL. Or 1-877-733-1011. Have you ever had any questions about the future? What does the future hold for all of us? I mean, we're getting closer to the end of the year. We're about to come to a new year, moving towards that date, 2012. And tonight, Cliff High is on my show, has a patent on computer-assisted reading technology, which allows reading from the computer screens up to 2,000 words per minute. What that does is there are certain words and emotions that are met with those words. Those words are then processed. The software project's been going on since 1997. It gives real-time changes in language patterns in Internet discussions, and with that, we can determine the consciousness of what is happening. It's almost like a full-on electronic tapping into the zeitgeist. Am I correct, Cliff?
Almost. I mean, I agree with the almost word. But no, you know, the concept of planetary zeitgeist, again, the ambiguity of words leads us to a situation where, yeah, I can agree with that. The statement is not inaccurate. Does it describe it in any real meaningful sense? Perhaps to some people. But to others, I don't know. You can say we're sort of getting into the collective unconscious, you know, that part of reality that we all coexist at, the part that keeps our, you know, bodies breathing at night while we're asleep and we're not paying attention, that sort of thing.
Right.
That we're hitting, yeah, there's no question there. Beyond that, I'm unwilling to speculate as to, you know, where we're headed with it. We've got some good results. We're better than chance. We can predict the linguistics that'll show up about future events, sometimes spectacularly accurately. And under those kind of conditions, that's really about all I'm asking of it. It's a lot of work just to get that.
Now, I know that with language, we speak directly to each other, but do you ever find within, I guess, you know, the whole soup that you get, the word salad that's out there, do you find any metaphors being used? Can you determine if there's a metaphor that is somehow overshadowing the entire spirit of what's happening out there?
We don't look at language quite that way because our software process here doesn't aggregate words by virtue of counting them and caring about words at that level. So if you're asking, is there an indication of a greater concept or something along those lines, I would have to say that there are hints of such, yeah. Is this in any way a meaningful way to talk to anybody's God? No, I don't think so.
No, I see that. I wouldn't think there would be. I was just thinking because I know that we do also convey our information through images. And if the brain is, we use the words, I mean, what images would be, if you could like filter the images, what images would describe or at least point to certain futures? What do we see that way?
You have a staggering thought there. I mean, I don't mean to interrupt, but if I had my absolute wish of all wishes, I wouldn't even bother with any of this. What I would do is I would do vast quantities of facial scanning, and I wouldn't on a near real time basis, and I wouldn't care about the individual faces. I wouldn't care whose face they were. It wouldn't matter. What I would be interested in would be the aggregate of faces, because the human body, the humans as humans, we communicate by language, but the communication we're having right now is so minuscule compared to what it can be in a face-to-face context, where we're able to observe the 163 muscles of the human face that engage us and actually communicate perhaps maybe 90% or greater of the meaning in any real conversation.
Right.
And so with just words, we're left with just such a small fraction of it. So that's what I would do, and I'm sure I could forecast all kinds of stuff, but the problem would be, from my perspective, using the faces, it would be extremely accurate but extremely short-term, sort of like the Princeton egg, right? It would turn red in the sense we'd know instantly, oh, geez, something big's happening, but we wouldn't really have a clue what it was going to be based on the faces. So the words give us the ability to reach further out into time, but of course that brings with it its own sort of failing, in the sense that the more time you're messing with, the more chance there is to get it wrong. And because the distance between you and the event in the future is large, the small degree of difference now means a big degree of difference by the time you get there. So you're way wrong by the time you get there, or you're extremely accurate.
Does the software take into consideration emoticons and also abbreviations?
No, we don't use any symbols. We use vast quantities of languages. We use multi-byte context in terms of the thinking about it from a programmatic viewpoint. We use multi-byte character sets. We scan in basic language groups that are come off the Germanic, off of the Romance languages, the English, all different kinds of dialects of English, Pali, Chinese, some Japanese, some Indonesian, some Vietnamese, and so on and so on and so on. So we have a large number of language groups as we can get to it, but no emoticons or any other form of symbols.
And no numbers.
No, we give vast quantity of numbers. We just pitch them all out because but correct, we don't deal in numbers, right?
Okay, fantastic. I just wanted to make sure that, everything was taken into account.
Yeah, that's really the sort of the key to the whole thing of some of our forecasts, like the Sumatran disaster, the Banda Aceh tsunami. Because when we saw that as linguistically show up nearly 11 months ahead of time, the striking thing about it was in a textual form. We had the descriptors of the numerals 300,000. So we had the word 3, THREE, 100, and the whole thing spelled out. And that's what caught my attention, because within our data sets, that's extremely rare. And so we rooted around in that data pretty good, and we got a reasonably good approximation of what would happen nearly 11 months later. And then because of the way in which the data had sort of tunneled, we thought it had been partially filled that summer and forgot about it. And then along comes Boxing Day, and here it was, and we met our linguistics of a land knocked back to a previous age, 300,000 killed or missing, et cetera, weddings disrupted, and so on. And speaking of which, that gets back to the overall question you asked about the larger idea of patterns. And one of the curious things I note is that frequently associated with our earthquake predictions are interrupted weddings. Why this should be, I don't have a clue, but the universe, for whatever reason, has a tendency to show us within those predictions of earthquakes that are going to be really accurate, we get the words about weddings being interrupted. And one of the ones that were spectacularly accurate was an earthquake that occurred a few years back in China. And the earthquake was arrived as forecast, and nothing. I mean, the earthquake was horrific. There was all kinds of problems and so on, but there was just absolutely nothing about weddings. And then 2.5, 3 weeks later, because it took that long to crawl out of the devastated area of China, along come a whole series of images of all of these brides and grooms that had been at this particular wedding chapel that was seriously devastated. And it wasn't just simply a single wedding that was interrupted. It was a whole day's worth of weddings, and there had been 100 scheduled. Everybody was all dressed up, so the imagery came out, and we even had it within the time frame forecast. So it had to do with the emotions, in my way of thinking of this, attached to that very primal archetype of the joining of human lives. And so the emotions that are attached to that come through a little bit more intensely, I think.
We do know that animals sense earthquakes before they happen. What about the overall the word combinations that are used prior to earthquakes? What do you see there? Because I have talked with a few people who say that the human body does sense earthquakes. More people are keen to their earthquake sensations than others. Some people crave certain foods at that time. Some people have other physical abnormalities such as dizziness and other things. Do you see the beginnings of those certain word phrases or word forms that come in before earthquakes?
Yes, we do. We have a particular pattern that we even look for now that I've reduced to a separate executable program that looks for it, and it's relative to things. Well, it's like ruptures, and we also look for inappropriate descriptions or unexpected descriptions of human body parts and processes showing up, because those are frequently, as you say, people reacting to their own earthquake clues within their own body.
So we're talking things like erectile dysfunction, throwing up, those types of things you see more of?
Other kinds of things, swelling, discomfort, who knows, headaches, that kind of thing.
Wow.
And they may not be able to appropriately assign it to a cause, and they just happen to be discussing, gardening and tulips, and they happen to say, oh, by the way, I've got a headache. And our software would connect the headache showing up at that particular time within that particular forum as being a disjoint, a non-conjunction, inappropriate word showing up there, and that's the kind of stuff we clue in on.
You see waves in geographic areas, or is this the entire globe?
Geographic areas we have to throw out just like numbers, because they're constantly repeated. They're just meaningless.
Oh, okay, because I was wondering if maybe you could pinpoint, like, for example, if...
We haven't got a hope for that, simply because everybody constantly talks about geographic. I had initially thought, oh, this will be easy, but no, it's because everybody's constantly talking about geographic areas. When you gather conversations by the hundreds of millions, you're left with hundreds of millions of references to geographic areas that, are taken out of context. Trout Lake could be in any number of states, that kind of thing, right?
Oh, I see what you're talking about, yeah. Cliff High's my guest tonight on Ground Zero. We're talking about Half Past Human. We're talking about the WebBot project. We're talking about seeking out the collective consciousness right there on the internet, and certain words and phrases that happen prior to events, the emotions that are attached to them, the images and things like that. I mean, it's just amazing how this is becoming a science. It's becoming a way to look into the future or approximate certain events and activities that are going to happen, and he has that information tonight. If you have any questions about the future of this country, the future of the world, the future maybe into that due date of 2012, I'd like to hear from you tonight. 503-417-9595 or 1-877-733-1011. We'll be back.
FM News 101 KXL.
Handyman Bob here, and I've been telling you for more than a year just why I buy my materials at Sherway Building Centers. I get great values, high-quality materials at unbelievably low prices. Here's another example. They just scored a great buy from a major composite decking manufacturer, and they're passing along the savings to you and me. Now, you can have that deck you want in one of 5 colors. It uses an encapsulation process to keep all the wood fiber dry, with prices starting at only $1.29 a foot. At that price, this supply won't last long. Of course, you're going to need pressure-treated framing lumber to support that deck, and nobody in the area stocks better quality at the low prices I find at Sherway. Again, that's value. One of the neatest things Sherway sells is ready-to-assemble shed kits. The newest one is designed for small yards. It's a 4x8 Craftsman style. But the best thing about all of them is that everything's included in the kit. Check out their website, Sherway.com, for details as well as driving directions. That's SHUR, Sherway.com.
At Sherway, we don't kid around about low prices.
In 1977, an 8-year-old boy picked up the game of golf from his father. The odds of that same boy winning the US Open twice, 1 in 1.2 billion. The odds of him having a child diagnosed with autism, 1 in 110. Ernie Els encourages you to learn the signs of autism at autismspeaks.org. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council. In 1977, in Johannesburg, South Africa, an 8-year-old boy picked up the game of golf from his father. By the age of 9, he was already outplaying him. The odds of that same boy then making it to the US and European Pro Golf Tours? 1 in 7 million. The odds of the Big Easy winning the Open Championship once and the US Open Championship twice? 1 in 780 million. The odds of this professional golfer having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 110. Ernie Els encourages you to learn the signs of autism at autismspeaks.org. Early diagnosis can make a lifetime of difference. Autism Speaks. It's time to listen. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
With Clyde Lewis and Ground Zero Radio on FM News 101 KXL. Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis.
Cliff High is my guest tonight on Ground Zero. HalfPastHuman.com is the place to go for more information. Tonight we're talking about the use of the computer to take linguistics, languages, emotions, try to put them together and try to make sense of the future. And tonight, we're asking Cliff a number of questions about the software and what it does. Cliff, is there a particular word or a particular, theme that's rolling around out there right now real time?
We look at, I'm sure there is. The issue would be what area do you want to discuss, because we have a tendency to slice and dice the data. At a broad level, today marked the shift between release language into building tension language. We had to start somewhere, so what I did was to decide that in matching up emotions to words, it made sense to really think about emotions for a long time and then to really think about words for a long time. And in thinking about emotions, I came to the conclusion that emotions fall into one of two broad categories. They're either a release of emotional tension experience, or they're a building emotional tension experience relative to our bodies, which is our highest level of archetype as humans. And so we have the process starts and takes the aggregate, the sum of all of the emotions, all of the words that we've come up with, and basically gives us a sort of a cheat sheet number as to where we're at. It's sort of like the daily newspaper version of a horoscope, a few lines that in general don't really mean that much, but they give you a brief flavor of the kind of day you're going to run into as the attempt in any event. So we have this, and we start off and deal with language as release language or building tension, where the gut is all tensed up and stuff would be an example of that. And we've just moved into building tension. The building tension language is going to last for about 8 days, and then it'll go back into release language. And we've just come out of a big period, a real long period of release language, as I'm sure everybody will recognize. There's been all kinds of wailing and gnashing of teeth about everything that you can think of these past few months. And that has been a long, long period of release language. It's going to be followed by a very short, very intense period of building tension that will last, as I say, about 8 days, and then it'll break again into release language.
So we see the tense language going on. It would probably be, I guess, attributed to the fact that we're in the middle of the Occupy times, or the times of I guess you could say, rebellion. We have the protesters in New York. We have right here in Oregon, we have the occupying of the city. That happened yesterday. There are a number of people right now that are in the park stranded because, they were supposed to leave today. They didn't leave, but, I just think that there's some tension possibly mounting about what to do about the people who are tired and fed up and who are screaming, I'm mad as hell and I can't take it anymore. Is that something that would be correct?
You're quite correct. This is planet-wide. The fact that we're experiencing this now was forecast months and months and months ago when we said that, okay, on this particular time period, we're going to shade over from release language. And bear in mind, we're talking about the grander aggregate of the whole nation and then the whole global populace, because this kind of thing is not restricted to the United States. It's going on in countries all over the planet. The Occupy movement, starting up in Belgium now, and prior to that we had all the riots in Greece and so on. So those individually gradually built up a sum until they've taken over and overwhelmed all of the release language, and now we have all of the tension as everybody has anxiety about the outcome in the future of these more tense, if you will, confrontational sorts of events. So to a certain extent, you can think of us as having passed out of a period in which we were more passive, because the release language frequently is about events that happen to us that we really can't do much about. Say, for instance, recently as we get out of this release language, we note that the planet released what's her name out of prison in Italy. Mm-hmm. And we had examples of actual releases also in the sense of, it released Steve Jobs from his task here on the planet. So those levels of release I never expect when we say that we're going to shift from release language to building tension, but occasionally the universe comes along and puts a fine point on it.
That is so fascinating. Cliff High is my guest tonight on Ground Zero. You heard what he said. We went from a period of release to now a period of tension, and we're seeing that language on the internet now. A lot of tense and heated thoughts and discussions being produced now, which indicate we're heading into a tense period of time. He pointed out the release of, many people from jail, Steve Jobs leaving the earth, releasing and releasing his soul to the sky or to wherever you believe he goes, that sort of thing. Release, now tension. We're going to talk more about how this goes, the ebb and the flow of the emotional aspects of what we do here. This is fascinating stuff from Cliff High tonight on Ground Zero. If you have any questions about what you see or what may happen in the future, 503-417-9595 or 1-877-733-1011. This is a way to look ahead and to plan. We'll be back with more. Keep it here on Ground Zero.
FM News 101 KXL.
Breaking news, traffic, and weather 24/7. More traffic than anywhere else on the dial. Portland's station of record. Non-stop news during your commutes. What's happening and why. Fox News on only one station. Our news promise. News Radio 101 FM KXL.
The most news, the most traffic, the most weather 24/7. This is FM News 101 KXL. Portland, Vancouver, Salem.
KXL News Time, 10 o'clock. Fox News Radio, I'm Sal Giangrasso. The September jobs report that came out Friday shows continuing weakness in hiring, and the White House says it has a remedy.
No one should be satisfied with this level of job growth.
National Economic Council Director Gene Sperling says the 103,000 jobs created last month, while an improvement, is still far too small. With unemployment stuck at 9.1%, Sperling says the economy needs the president's jobs bill.
Nobody should be willing to sit on their hands and just do nothing when there's even a chance that we could go into a double-dip recession.
Florida House Republican Alan West says the president's plan is more of what didn't work in the first place.
The president's jobs plan is just a mini-me stimulus, which we have already seen has failed.
Republicans say the president's policies are hurting the recovery. At the White House, Mike Makowitz, Fox News Radio.
The Justice Department seeks to block Alabama's immigration law.
Their case, it conflicts with federal guidelines, would invite discrimination and force undocumented workers into neighboring states. A federal judge has already upheld two key provisions allowing authorities to question and hold people suspected of being there illegally. Alabama's governor saying the government's move is no surprise, and he remains committed to seeing the law fully implemented.
Fox News Radio's Jessica Stone. The St. Louis Cardinals eliminate the Philadelphia Phillies after falling behind 2-1 in their National League Division Series. Cardinals manager Tony La Russa.
This is really special because we could have given up and we didn't give up.
Courtesy TBS Sports, the Cards face Milwaukee for the National League pennant. The Brewers clinched their berth earlier with a victory over Arizona. Saturday night, Detroit and Texas square off in Game 1 of the American League Championship Series in Texas. The Simpsons have been renewed for 2 more seasons. A contract dispute with the show's voice cast had threatened to end the series, but they ironed it out. No details were released. You're listening to Fox News Radio, fair and balanced.
This is the Evening Update from FM News 101 KXL.
I'm David Smeltzer. Good evening. There will be a campus police department at the University of Oregon. KXL's David Martin has the details.
Hey guys, the weekend begins dry. We'll have some fun.
Discussions and meetings have been going on for quite a while, and this afternoon the State Board of Higher Education made its decision.
The legislature passed Senate Bill 405 in this last session, and that enabled the U of O to establish a police department with the approval from the State Board of Higher Education, and that approval was provided this afternoon.
Diane Saunders with the Oregon University System says they'll be working in tandem with Eugene Police, but the firearms issue has yet to be decided.
They will be working to transition into a police department, so their officers would have the same training as any police officers in the state of Oregon.
Saunders says the transition will take 6 years. She also says Oregon and Oregon State are the only 2 public universities in the Pac-12 that do not have a police department. David Martin, FM News 101 KXL.
The city of Portland is bracing for budget cuts, and they may be as high as 8%. Mayor Sam Adams is asking all departments to prepare.
This has been a terrible recovery, and we still have far too many people that are unemployed and far too many businesses that are struggling.
Adams says he wants to protect public safety from the deepest cuts. Chapman Square is still crowded with Occupy Portland protesters, even though they were supposed to leave this morning. The Portland Marathon has a permit to use the park over the weekend. Police say arrests will be a last resort. And for most of the day, northbound traffic on I-5 has been a nightmare approaching Centralia, all because of an early morning accident involving 2 semis, a box truck, and a load of household chemicals that scattered all across the freeway. The backups were horrendous.
I heard at one point it was over 10 miles. We actually had both northbound lanes of I-5 shut down for quite an extended period of time.
Washington State Trooper Ryan Tanner says it took nearly 9 hours to reopen all northbound lanes of I-5. We got more of Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis on the way. KXL News Time 10:04, traffic and weather next.
If you live in the Portland area, there's a very good chance you're very aware of By Nature all-natural and organic dog food. With a powerful mix of vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants, it promotes a strong immune system and a healthier, longer life for your pal. And you're probably also aware that By Nature is giving away free dog food for a year to one lucky dog owner every week until the end of October. Go to ByNatureDogs.com and sign up. After all, free is a pretty good deal, especially on really great dog food like By Nature. And while you're at the website, you should download our coupon for a really great limited time offer. You don't have to be lucky to take advantage of that. Remember, you are what you eat, and so is your pooch. So think all natural and organic. Think by nature for more dog years.
By Nature has a great limited time offer. Buy 4 cans dog food, get 1 6-pound bag dry food free. Visit ByNatureDogs.com today to print your coupon.
Portland's most traffic 24/7. Looking on the north side of town, you'll find no problems. I-5 heading into Vancouver. The Banfield eastbound, just the usual 6-minute drive between 205 and I-5, and no problem Sunset inbound between 217 and the Vista Ridge Tunnel. The KXL weather forecast.
Hey guys, the weekend begins dry. We'll have some fog around Saturday morning. Don't let that fool you into thinking it's going to be gray all day, because it won't be. Partly sunny in the afternoon. 66, one of our warmer days of the last week. Showers coming in later Saturday night and Sunday morning. Sun breaks late on Sunday, high 64. I'm KGW News Channel 8 meteorologist Matt Safino for KXL.
Right now, 55 degrees in Portland. I'm David Smelter. Set a button to FM News 101 KXL and KXL.com.
Hello. You are about to experience Ground Zero, an on-speaker experience. Cuts through the crowd. Just when you thought you were safe.
The loudspeaker spoke up and said, "Wait, Jimmy." The loudspeaker spoke up and said, "Wait, Jimmy." The loudspeaker spoke up and said, "Wait, Jimmy." Give up. Give up. Give up. Give up. Give up. Wait, Jimmy. Wait, Jimmy. Wait, Jimmy.
I'm Clyde Lewis, and this is Ground Zero. Ground Zero tonight, coming to you live from FM News 101 KXL in Portland, Oregon. Heard all over the world by going to KXL.com. You can go in the chat room by going to groundzeromedia.org. And tonight, the phone numbers to call in, 503-417-9595. That's 9KXL. Or 1-877-733-1011. We invite everyone who's listening outside of the Portland, Oregon area also to tune in and call in at 1-877-733-1011. My guest tonight, Cliff High. And I guess, you know, I've always heard this, and I've said this, I've caught myself saying this too, Cliff, and that is, something big is about to happen. It seems to be on everybody's minds. It comes out of everybody's mouths. Something big is on the way. Would you agree?
Oh, certainly. There's absolutely no question of that. Question is it just one thing, or is it something so large that it obscures a whole lot of stuff ahead of it? We have that same effect with our earthquake prediction, especially the one in Sumatra. That same year, we had another earthquake that fulfilled part of our language, and this was the one in which there was a trial here on the West Coast for murder, and it was a sort of quasi-celebrity trial and so on. And we've actually thought in June or July, when the minor earthquake happened that emptied out the courtroom, oh, well, geez, all the linguistics have been fulfilled, and not realizing that the larger event was still pending. So I think that is what people are picking up on. And indeed, all humans are psychic, and it's leaking out. And we all feel it. We're all jittery. In the past, people have said, well, you know, it's tied into solar effects in terms of the amount of radiation and so on, and I'm quite certain that there is a component of that as well. And
what about, I think most people, and this is what I gather from my shows and what I've talked to people about, they're expecting an extraterrestrial event.
I don't dispute that, because we've always, even since 1997, in 1997 I had to do something with this. I'd invested 3 or 4 years in programming on this, on basically just because I was curious about how some of the elements of language worked and didn't have anything better to occupy my time with. And so I decided, well, I'll aim this thing at the stock market and try and recoup some money for all the time I invested in it. And started looking at things relative to the stock market, and I just chose a target that I knew about, which was Stanford University Network Computing, whose call sign was SUN. And I ended up getting all this kind of data about the sun, meaning the big scary ball in the sky, not Stanford University Network. And it had me so intrigued I never went back to looking at the stock market again, or messing with that relative to the software, and just started looking at some of these other things that were coming in. So even back as far as 97, the primary focus of the software at that time, in terms of the limited amount of data that it brought back out of that very first run, showed a surprising amount of energy being directed towards the sun and sun disease. So even back in 97, we were feeling the early wave of that. And you can postulate that the larger the event in the future, the greater the heads up, if you will, that we will feel or have relative to feeling it ahead of time, and if only we knew what it was we were feeling. Make sense? We're not quite like the animals who get a 5-hour heads up, don't care what it is they're feeling, and they just run to high ground. Mm-hmm. And, oh yeah, it turns out it was water, and it was a good thing they ran. But they had no real conscious notion as to what was motivating them at that time. It wasn't like they have a word for tsunami and were passing it among themselves in that sort of an event. Now, we are sort of in that same situation, only because we're slightly more aware than other animals on the planet. We question ourselves, and that's where we find ourselves getting into trouble. We're aware we've got this feeling. We don't really have much of a clue as to what it's attached to, but we know it's pending. Now, some of the clues are coming out, and I actually think that there's a whole series of things that will be hassling us. And ultimately, probably the big one pending in next year and all the way in through 2013 is going to be explosions out of the sun, much more violent than anything we've seen so far, and much more Earth-affecting.
I was actually looking over the papers that Olaf had submitted to me, and I got the feeling in my interpretations of what I was seeing from the data was exactly what I was kind of saying on my show a few weeks back when we were having an increase. We actually had a spike of UFO reports here in Oregon. The whole West Coast was seeing a spike in UFO reports. And what it turned out, a number of people were saying, well, what you're seeing is you're seeing these meteors coming out of the sky. We have satellites going to be falling out of the sky. And somewhere out there, I can't remember exactly. I'd have to get that out, and I will probably during the break to look it over where I found it. But something that was alluding to the idea that perhaps a lot of these reports are covers for the possible intrusion of perhaps extraterrestrials or extraterrestrial craft. Do you remember that?
Sure, yeah. And part of the issue here is that I have a certain advantage when I put these reports together, in that whatever clear days we have, I can go on out with these third-generation night vision goggles and actually see extraterrestrial. That is to say, critters up there trucking around that are obviously mechanical craft of some kind that are not satellites. And so I'm rather blasé about it. The issue for us is going to be whether or not the appearance of extraterrestrials will be a legitimate or organic or natural event versus one that is put up by the powers that be to cover the huge amount of theft that's going to be occurring very shortly in the global financial system. The system is near collapse,
right.
And at the same time that it's going to collapse, there's going to be a huge theft of resources. We know this. It's predictable. We saw the same thing that alerted us to the pending 9/11 occurrence in 2001, as early as June of that year. I knew that something was up, and one of our clues showed up then, and we've seen that same clue in 2008 when we made a prediction that we were about to hit a real hard bump in the economy, and we're seeing it all over again. That same clue has showed up. They're about ready to try another giant theft.
Wow. Let's go to Mark. Mark, of course, had a question about the financial markets. Mark calling from Dallas, Texas. You're on Ground Zero.
Hey, guys. Hey, Cliff and Clyde.
Hey.
Really fascinating show. It's really interesting. Cliff, I would love to just hear some of your actual forecasts for the rest of the program, and specifically maybe your calls on the economy and the stock market. I've been thinking the market is about to take a big nosedive, and we've had this huge rally this week, and that
was forecast, though. The rally is I'd written that in this last report that they were going to spin some positive news, and they were going to be able to hold it spun in a positive direction, which means, not hugely negative at this point, relative to the markets for these 8 days, and then it was going to crash on the 15th. And I suspect that will be the case. I suspect now one of the proximate triggers will be something like Germany exiting from the euro.
Wow, so on the 15th.
That's when the building tension releases. And the building tension goes up very rapidly over this next week, so we can expect a gut-wrenching, tightening kind of language coming out of the globe to assault us. And then on the 15th, we get a big kick into release again, which takes us straight down over a couple of days, and then we have a slower build-up in tension that takes us to November. So the release in the 15th now will be over, say, that weekend and into early part of Monday the 17th. So imagine the following scenario. What if something like Germany pulling out of the euro were to occur early on a Saturday morning relative to the U.S.? That would be perfect timing because the markets would be closed. It would be an ideal time for the Germans to do it, to allow everybody to get a chance to adjust to the idea. That would be release language for us as everybody's running around wailing and vomiting out all their fear about what's going to happen when the markets open. But when the markets reopen on the Monday following, which would be the 17th, then everybody would be tense, and that's where we show our building tension language again.
Wow.
Nonetheless, and now that doesn't mean that just because they're tense, we're not going to have a market crash, because likely that is the case. Because I know that the bad guys out there are trying to steal probably something close to $16 trillion in resources, and they're desperate for it. So they're going to crash the markets, and under the cover of this, we'll see the resources be thieved, just the way that prior to 9/11, Rumsfeld comes out on the September 10th and says, "Oh, by the way, people, somebody stole $2.3 trillion. We can't figure it out of the Pentagon."
Well, any idea on a target? How far down you think the market might actually go? Say by the Dow?
No, I don't have any investment in any of that paper stuff. I think anybody messing with trading is a fool, and that you're also, and beyond that, you're participating in an evil, immoral act that goes directly to the heart and the core of the central banks and the warfare model that is spewing out death and destruction on our species. And if you're investing in the stock market, I swear to you that you do not understand the level to which you are participating in evil.
Well, I wouldn't disagree. I guess I'm just trying to understand if we're on the verge of a 29 style collapse and it's going to get really bad, or
no, we're on the verge of the collapse of paper currencies at a global level. We are on the verge of the separation of the Qin Empire into the Dark Ages that followed when the first paper currency in the planet, in this particular cycle in the last 11,000 years, crashed. So they tried paper currency in China way back in the old, before current era days. So no, this is not a replica. There won't be a reboot of the system afterwards. They'll try, and if we stand up, they won't be able to do it. And we won't go back to anything closely approximating the horror that we have with our currency system. But it's on an order of magnitude greater than the 1930s. So this is truly the Kondratev winter taken to its logical extreme because we're a global currency.
Wow.
Mark, I appreciate you calling. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
You bet. Take care. Bye-bye. Cliff High is my guest tonight on Ground Zero. Half past human, you just heard the projections for the markets and what's happening. We're now at a point of tension, and we're seeing that with all of the rebellion going on around the country, with the Wall Street occupation, the occupation here in the United States. We're hearing about the markets crashing. He says be aware of what's going on around you the 15th. I do know that a lot of, police, National Guard troops, groups like that have been guarding the banks to keep people from withdrawing. We're at that point right now. 503-417-9595 or 1-877-733-1011. Coming up, I'm going to be asking Cliff about the possibility of a food scare happening right before the holidays. That's something that he has written that seems to be in the cards. Talk about that coming up right here on Ground Zero.
Got an opinion? Call KXL now. 503-417-9KXL or 877-733-1011.
You've worked hard to build your company from the ground up, but what happens when that bargain roofing job fails? Your roof leaks and your ceiling is damaged, not to mention the business lost from ruined merchandise and no customers. And what if your bargain roofer is uninsured? Why take chances? McDonald & Weddle has been protecting businesses from water damage for almost 90 years, and they'll protect yours too, 24/7. At McDonald & Weddle of Portland, their business is roofs, and only roofs. In fact, McDonald & Weddle does some of the most unique roofs in the region. From historical restorations, solar, to high-rise commercial and industrial jobs. Or go green with Portland's finest eco-roof system. McDonald & Weddle cares about the local environment. They support our local environment and contribute to stream rehabilitation and watershed protection. They recycle most of the materials they remove from job sites into other useful products. For more information, go to McDonaldWeddle.com. McDonald & Weddle, making good eco-sense, keeping you covered since 1921.
Rankin Auto Wholesale is your Portland connection to fantastic pre-owned cars, trucks, SUVs, and vans. This is the dealership famous for financing. You'll find full spectrum financing as low as 2.99% APR. Rankin Auto Wholesale has a solid A rating from the Better Business Bureau and is a finalist for the 2012 Oregon Quality Dealer of the Year. It's quality cars and quality people. See their selection online at rankinautoWholesale.com or visit the dealership at 82nd and Burnside. Get your next pre-owned vehicle from Rankin Auto Wholesale. Cars to go.
That's it. We're wasting valuable time and money running all over town for our printing needs.
Might I suggest Phoenix Media? They're high quality, easy to work with, and a one-stop shop with quick turnaround.
So, can they handle?
Postcards, posters, business cards, brochures, stationery, stickers, banners, flyers, catalogs, rack cards, tickets, door hangers.
Okay, I like it. Are they local?
Southeast 11th in Portland or at phoenixmedia.com.
My job just got a whole lot easier.
I heard everyone's eating at the Morrison's garden.
What's the attraction? New blooms? Fresh plants?
I'm not sure, but there's something powerfully attractive about that place, and we're going.
Fine. Let's just follow the popular slime trail.
Make your garden a hit with snails and slugs with Corey's Slug and Snail Bait and Deadline Slug and Snail Bait from Lanza. These are formulated to effectively control slugs and snails because they contain meta, an active ingredient which lures slugs and snails from their hiding spots. It works fast, won't harm beneficial organisms like earthworms, and decomposes in carbon dioxide and water. Ask for Corey's or Deadline Slug and Snail Bait at your local garden retailer or online at MetaWorksBest.com. Corey's or Deadline Slug and Snail Bait come in mini pellets, liquid paste, or meal. Put a hit on slugs and snails. Order online at MetaWorksBest.com or ask for it at your local garden store.
Drill and fill. Seal the envelope. Seal the ductwork. Those were the buzzwords around Handyman Bob's house last December as the guys from Westside Drywall and Insulation made my home more energy efficient. They did an energy audit, including a blower door test, and we learned that the house leaked air like a sieve. While one crew sealed up the leaks in the furnace ductwork to make sure all the forced air reached the heat registers, another crew was busy drilling holes in the siding and filling the stud base with fiberglass insulation. Well, that was the night that my wife had to take a blanket off the bed because she got too hot. The reason I use Westside and recommend them to you is that they know energy saving includes a lot more than just adding insulation. And as a trade ally contractor of Energy Trust of Oregon, they can help with cash incentives and state energy tax credits to improve the energy efficiency of your home under CCV license 71044. You know, you'll be healthier, more comfortable, and save money with your home sealed. Get a quote from them today by visiting their website, westsidedrywall.com.
This is Ground Zero on FM News 101 KXL. Everyone is in on the secrets, and big things are being planned. Call Clyde Lewis now. Ground
Do you want to know the future? How many times have you thought to yourself, boy, if I just had a way to look through a window, it could give me an idea of what's coming, I'd be able to plan ahead, figure out what's going on, protect my family. Well, future events apparently can be approximated, thanks to the computer and thanks to software that my guest Cliff High says that he has been using to at least come close or approximate some of the future events. I've been looking over some things that he's written, and I'm blown away by some of the stuff. I was reading here that you said back in June that by September and early October, we would be seeing the United States. It's actually something about a political response to something, and that there would be a lot of tension and a lot of people worried about what is coming, which would cause an uprising. You wrote that, and you used a term that I can't use on the air, that people will be so frightened that they will have no other alternative but to rise up.
That's quite the case, and we saw this actually in June. We were seeing it in what we call immediacy values. When I started off this project, I realized that language had a tendency to clump itself into three groups that I could sort of get a handle on, and the first was the immediacy language, which was effective from about 3 days out until about the end of the third week away from whenever we saw that language. And then there was short-term language, which was from the fourth week out to the end of the fourth month. And then there was long-term language, which was from the end of the fourth month all the way out much further, usually to about 19 months with accuracy, and then faded from then on. But so in June, it started hitting in the immediacy language. Now the interesting part for us is that when you get into the immediacy language, meaning the event is really close to you, we get a lot more details. But even then, in June, we couldn't really wrap our heads around what it was that was going to cause the political response. And see, because it was too amorphous, and that's just what we've got here with this unorganized or self-organizing sit-in, or whatever you want to call it. How, we don't even really have an accurate word to describe everything that we're seeing at the moment, because it certainly doesn't fit into any characterization very easily. And so we in June couldn't even do that, but we could see that there was going to be a political response that was easily determined, because we do have a language for the response that's going to be coming out of the political minion class. And by that I mean, the president and all the doofuses, all the Congress critters.
Right. So, we're going to be seeing a response. We're already seeing a response, actually, about the Occupy Wall Street. Even though the president, in I guess word, says that he supports it, the actions show a declaration of more police state mentality being exercised. We're seeing the police against the people, and that's the question. I mean, I don't know if you can address this, but I asked the question today at the rally: do you see this actually snowballing into a civil unrest, a civil war? A lot of people said that this just might be it. This is the sparking of the revolution. This is the point that is to set off possibly the civil war.
I wouldn't call it a civil war, because that makes it too organized, and it's that you're falling into a mind trap when you use words like that the powers that be want you to fall into. Bear in mind a couple of things here. There is indeed a war declared, and it's by the 1% on the rest of the 99%, and countries no longer are meaningful relative to that war. These people set off a bomb which can be proven that caused the Fukushima event. That earthquake was not an earthquake. It was the signature in the ground from that event resembles only one thing in all the history of the signatures of such things we've captured from the ground, and it resembles a hydrogen bomb explosion and a test those hydrogen bomb explosions that we did in the 60s. And that signature says there was a hydrogen bomb that was set off, and people are trying to kill us. The people that are trying to kill us are the 1% that want to whittle down the 99%.
Oh.
And that's the angst that's coming out now.
Fantastic. Cliff High is my guest tonight on Ground Zero. We're going to explore that some more. The 99% rebelling against the 1%. We're seeing it on the streets of Portland tonight. We're seeing it on the streets of in Florida. We're seeing it on the streets in New York, all over the country, Los Angeles, you name it. The rebellion is going on. What does the future hold? 503 417-9595 or 1-877-733-1011. Do you have a question about what's ahead? Give us a call. We'll be back with more. Keep it here on Ground Zero.
FM News 101 KXL.
I heard everyone's eating at the Morrison's garden.
What's the attraction? New blooms? Fresh plants?
I'm not sure, but there's something powerfully attractive about that place, and we're going.
Fine. Let's just follow the popular slime trail.
Make your garden a hit with snails and slugs with Corey's Slug and Snail Bait and Deadline Slug and Snail Bait from Lonza. These are formulated to effectively control slugs and snails because they contain meta, an active ingredient which lures slugs and snails from their hiding spots. It works fast, won't harm beneficial organisms like earthworms, and decomposes in carbon dioxide and water. Ask for Corey's or Deadline Slug and Snail Bait at your local garden retailer or online at MetaWorksBest.com. Corey's or Deadline Slug and Snail Bait come in mini pellets, liquid paste, or meal. Put a hit on slugs and snails. Order online at MetaWorksBest.com or ask for it at your local garden store.
The most news, the most traffic, the most weather, 24/7. This is FM News 101 KXL.
Right now, 55 degrees in Portland. KXL News Time, 10:30.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pam Puso. The White House using the latest unemployment numbers to push President Obama's jobs bill.
We should do this, if for no other reason, as an insurance policy against even the chance of a double-dip recession.
Economic advisor Gene Sperling, last month 103,000 jobs were created, not enough to change the 9.1% unemployment rate. A three-day rally coming to a close on Wall Street, the Dow losing 20 points on Friday. They won the Super Bowl a quarter century ago. The Chicago Bears finally recognized by the White House.
This is as much fun as I will have as President of the United States, right here.
President Obama saluting his hometown heroes. Back in 1986, the team did not get the usual White House reception due to the disaster of the Space Shuttle Challenger. Fox News, we report, you decide.
From Portland's breaking news, traffic, and weather station, FM News 101 KXL, I'm David Smeltzer. We got more of Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis straight ahead here on KXL. Right now, it's Portland's most traffic, and just taking a look around south of town, you'll find no problems coming up I-5 north into downtown Portland. West side looks good. Sunset Highway inbound and outbound between the Vista Ridge Tunnel and Highway 217. 217 itself, free and clear both directions. The KXL weather forecast.
See a low of 53, some fog Saturday morning, then partly sunny and 66. Showers late Saturday night, early Sunday morning, should be ending by about 9, 10 o'clock, and then sun breaks in the afternoon, high 64. I'm KGW News Channel 8 meteorologist Matt Safino for KXL.
Right now, Salem, Hillsborough, and Portland all checking in at 55 degrees. News happens fast. Check back several times each day and don't miss a thing. I'm David Smeltzer. Set a button to FM News 101 KXL.
You realize you're serious about your house when you get excited about a new roof. Hey, it's Lars, and boy am I excited about my new roof. You know, Tina and I knew that we were taking on a challenge with a 60-some-year-old house. The fact is it needed a new roof, and we limped along with the old one, just hoping every winter that it wouldn't start leaking. Well, now I don't have to worry about it for the rest of my life. A lifetime guarantee, and it's a flat roof, the kind that can be a problem in the Northwest, but not at our house. Gresham Roofing did a fantastic job. They specialize in residential, commercial, flat roofs, and green roofing. They also have solar roofing and roof repair. They have 24/7 emergency service and free estimates for you on the web at GreshamRoofing.com or give them a call, 503-492-7663. That's 492-7663. They did a clean job. It was over quickly. It was fantastic. And we needed some custom things done on our roof. Gresham Roofing did a fantastic job. CCB number 189776.
Sonitrol Pacific knows there are many reasons to switch to their keyless entry system, but the most important reasons come from those who have already switched.
I save money because I don't have to rekey the locks or issue new keys every time we have an employee change.
We couldn't keep track of all the keys that were out. Now I call Sonitrol and they provide me a list of all active cardholders.
I never knew when the night janitors came into my building or how long they were there. Now I know I'm getting what I pay for.
It's so easy for me to limit access to areas inside my building.
The Sonitrol Pacific keyless entry system integrates with your security system, and building access management is as easy as making a phone call. We do all the work for you. You'll always know who was in your building and when. Protect your business with Sonitrol. We hear the crooks and they hear. For more details, go to SonitrolPacific.com. That's SonitrolPacific.com.
CCP 53535.
More with Clyde Lewis and Ground Zero Radio on FM News 101 KXL.
Fabulous bird, reborn from the ashes of its earlier life. So I dream. 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 So I dream.
We'll all die, or how they just drown and we'll die. I think it's about something that's gonna happen. The world's gonna end. They're telling us the world's gonna end.
So I dream.
I'm Clyde Lewis, and this is Ground Zero. Tonight, Cliff High is my guest. HalfPastHuman.com. What does the future hold for you? What does it hold for all of us? Cliff High has a way to explain it. He uses software and a computer to analyze linguistics and what the spirit of the world is because of the consciousness that is there in the internet and on the computers. Tonight, we're taking your questions at 503-417-9595. For those of you in the chat room that want to call toll-free, it's 1-877-733-1011. And we have a question from H. Michael Sweeney. Go ahead. You're on Ground Zero with Cliff High.
Hi, Clyde. Actually, I had a second thought while you were coming back from the spots, and that is that there is another person out there who's done some very good predictive work based on modeling of the same sort. A little bit different. His algorithms are called parallelism, and he was
sure. Yeah, I'm familiar with that. Yeah.
Yeah. He's actually a client of mine, and so anybody who thinks that your gifts methods aren't real or workable should think again. But the reason I was calling is, you were interestingly touching upon the notion that the Occupy Wall Street, etc., could possibly be a spark for something much greater. My fear is, as you know, I gave you a copy of Fatal Rebirth. I don't know if you've had time to read it, but it did predict September 11 and events beyond, including the oil wars that resulted.
Right.
And there's going to be more steps to get us to that point where they can declare a full national martial law, go door to door, and basically round up the activists and collect all the guns and neutralize citizenry. And my concern would be that if this is the spark, then that will force them to move their timetable up, and I would expect there to be a very large false flag operation to give us something more serious to think about than some kids camping out in the middle of the street.
I would like to expound upon that with Cliff. Cliff, what do you see as that sort of scenario? I know we've all been waiting since 9/11 for that event that is supposed to be taking place. And so far, nothing. We've never had really a major event yet that even compares to 9/11. However, the whole devastation of the banks, these uprisings, and then taking these, pretending like we support them, and then all of a sudden turn on them, and then release the police on them, and then we see the mass arrests, we see the killing in the streets. What about that, Cliff? What do we see?
To a certain extent, you're looking at layer upon layer upon layer of theater. You have to understand how language works relative to the powers that be. First, let's go back to the idea that we'd left before the break of civil war. It can be easily dismissed in this case because it's not a case that we had in Civil War of the past when it was sold to us that we needed to fight our cousins because our cousins had an economic interest in slavery and they happen to live in certain southern states. This is a situation where you're not going to be facing your cousin or your brother in your rage against the bank because your cousin or brother has no loyalty to that bank. The number of people that have an economic interest in the banking system as it exists now is very small, hence the 1%. So we're looking at an entirely different situation than we had with civil wars in the past. This is also pan-global. Also, to think of this as this is indeed a spark. It is for something larger. It does indeed force the hand of the powers that be. It means that they must accelerate. It does indeed make them dangerous, and all of the consequences of their desperation. The false flag cannot be terroristic because they've used that linguistic element already. Terrorism is a so what anymore. Also, we know, for instance, that linguistically, this, whatever it is that's occurring, it's not quite a revolution, it's not a rebellion, Occupy, whatever, however we characterize it. This is also not being co-opted or is not co-optable by the powers that be they can't shovel it into their usual framework and control it because of the nature of the people that are involved at the core level. This particular, as we characterize it here at Half Past Human, the Pluto in Scorpio generation, because this generation born from 80 onward with primary cluster in the 89 through 91 period is so media savvy that they've heard it all.
So you're saying that even though people like George Soros and
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
And they've been trying to co-opt this, even Obama's been trying to say this is mobilizing America, it will not stand because these activists are far more savvy and they will not allow it to happen. In fact, I did read the other day that there is now a splinter group that has decided that they don't want anything to do with the unions that are trying to co-opt the Occupy movement. They've decided to break off from it, and they're independent from it, and they're saying they're not a part of it. It's already branching off.
We've been writing about this since I've been writing about this since 2002 with the appellation of self-organizing collective.
Okay. Anything else, Michael?
No, I think that was a good analysis, and I look forward to hearing the rest of the show. I thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much for calling in tonight. Let's now go to George calling from Miami, Florida. Thank you, George, for calling, and you're on with Cliff High. Go ahead.
How you doing, Cliff?
Doing pretty good.
Well, I love your work. Thank you for all your reports you've been putting out. My question is about the Pope. You have put in the report a small segment about the Pope and the fall of the Vatican.
Yeah.
And I wanted to hear a little bit more about it since it was a small section.
Okay, we actually, in the data, before I wrote up the last report and did the final check on the data, I was pretty sure I was going to write that the Pope would die in this quarter, in the quarter between the equinox and the coming solstice in December. But when we got to the last check in the data, there was a slight deviation in the data that seems to suggest that there may be something really nasty that happens to Ratzinger, but it may not be death as we know it. He may go into a coma or something along those lines. This is going to be concurrent with, with the eruption of the food riots and the austerity measures and so on, and then the rioting in Rome. So we're getting very close to that period of time that we've been writing about all the way back since 2003. It's going to be very interesting relative to that. The stresses that are going to be affecting the Catholic Church as one of the wealthiest organizations on the planet at a time when so much of the human race is going to be facing famine cannot be overstated. It will render that elitist pedophilic core organization to its core and spew out all kinds of information and goodies for the rest of the planet.
This backs up
sitting on.
This backs up my investigations. I've been reading some things and I've been seeing some things that indicate. Now, it may be after the Pope's death or the Pope stepping down or something happening with the Pope that the Jesuits are going to step in and declare war on Satan, actually. They're going to come right out and declare war on Satan. They're going to reveal to the world that there's something out in space that's coming to us. They believe that there will be a complete and utter war against the church, and they are going to become militant against the world. And this is what I was noticing. In fact, the hiring of nearly 400 exorcists to go to Rome and to be trained is something that needs to be considered.
Well, from our viewpoint, from my personal viewpoint, the Jesuits represent a particular point of one of the evil pimples on the planet, and they are headed by the Black Pope, and they buy into and support one of the largest brainwashing organizations that's ever afflicted humanity with evil and pestilence, and that every Jesuit that has ever lived should bear the karmic burden that they have accepted in donning those black robes and taking that black oath. So anything the Jesuits bring out, I know, is Taurus Facundus excreta.
Okay. That's good Latin there. George, any other questions about the future of the Vatican?
No, that was it. I just wanted a little clarification.
Thank you so much for the call. Thank you so much. Oh, that's amazing what you're predicting, because I am actually I've actually been in contact with a priest, a number of a priest that was one of the...
You mean with one of the self-deluded organizational people that work for the corporate megalith Catholic Church?
Well, if you want to put it that way, he actually was going to give me the information about the declaration of war on Satan that they're preparing for. It's going to be a big show. That's the demonstration.
Just theater. I mean, are you inviting me to think that that's accurate? That there is a Satan? That any of this is
No. I'm just saying that this is what they are saying. I'm not trying to step on your belief systems or anything. I mean, this is what they're going to be pushing. I mean, you're saying that the Pope is going to be met with some sort of a horrible thing happening to him. It was already, in fact, it's funny.
No, I'm sorry, I never used those words. Ratzinger's, his fate is his own, his karma is his own from his own past crimes. The suffering that he will endure is his own. I'm not
because
saying
of his Nazi past. The Nazi past that he had. I don't want to mince words here. I'm telling you now, I'm being objective. I'm saying that the church has already decided that out there lies something. They've got a telescope called Lucifer that they're using to try and track this down. They are going to create, as you say, and what I agree with, is theater that's going to be about the declaration of war against Satan on this planet. And they're already recruiting exorcists for this very purpose. And it's going to be an amazing time because the church is going to really, really, really turn up I guess you could say the special effects, if you will, to get people to pay attention, because we're edging closer to a time where these catastrophes are happening and they're going to use them as fodder for conversion.
They're going to try it for their mind control stuff, that's true, but they're facing some stuff that may be their plan that won't materialize. Our data suggests that far from it, that the church is going to be in extremely perilous point from say December 2nd through to about March 13th, and then they're going to be scrambling trying to save their individual lives.
Mm-hmm. And I concur with that completely. I concur with that completely. One of the things that I also noticed that you were actually publishing was something about a possible food scare, some sort of I guess you could say a famine coming. I want to talk about that coming up soon. Cliff High is my guest tonight on Ground Zero, finding out some very interesting things about the future here with their data. 503-417-9595 is the number to call. That's 9KXL. Or if you're outside the Portland, Oregon area, the number to call is 1-877-733-1011. This is your opportunity to ask questions about the future with Cliff High tonight. If you have anything on your mind, you'd like to ask about anything in particular about the world affairs, the markets, what's going to happen in the future, give us a call. We'll be back with more. Keep it here on Ground Zero.
Got an opinion? Call KXL now. 503-417-9KXL or 877-733-1011.
You've worked hard to build your company from the ground up, but what happens when that bargain roofing job fails? Your roof leaks and your ceiling is damaged, not to mention the business lost from ruined merchandise and no customers. And what if your bargain roofer is uninsured? Why take chances? McDonald & Weddle has been protecting businesses from water damage for almost 90 years, and they'll protect yours too, 24/7. At McDonald & Weddle of Portland, their business is roofs, and only roofs. In fact, McDonald & Weddle does some of the most unique roofs in the region. From historical restorations, solar, to high-rise commercial and industrial jobs. Or go green with Portland's finest eco-roof system. McDonald & Weddle cares about the local environment. They support our local environment and contribute to stream rehabilitation and watershed protection. They recycle most of the materials they remove from job sites into other useful products. For more information, go to McDonaldWeddle.com. McDonald & Weddle, making good eco-sense, keeping you covered since 1921.
Portland's exclusive source for Fox Radio News. Traffic and weather every 10 minutes on the 7s, going to work and coming home. The largest radio news staff in Oregon, with non-stop coverage 5 to 9 a.m. and 4 to 7 p.m. Don't miss a thing. News Radio 101 FM KXL.
You know, Portland Preparedness Center is a sponsor of this program. Portland Preparedness Center, if you call them today, 502-252-2525. If you go to 72nd Gleason, you can go by there and take a look what they have to offer. As a matter of fact, I'm very excited because just yesterday I had a chance to see a pantry that was available that gives you all sorts of great foods, freeze-dried foods, all packaged together, where what you can do is you can have that on hand and it will help you prepare for the future. So, what you need to do is you need to contact Michael Knight. Call him at 503-252-2525. That's 503-252-2525. Or go in. They're open Tuesday through Saturday at Portland Preparedness Center. GetPrepared.com. Portland Preparedness Center. Just go there. 72nd Gleason. You'll be glad you did.
In 1977, an 8-year-old boy picked up the game of golf from his father. The odds of that same boy winning the U.S. Open twice, 1 in 1.2 billion. The odds of him having a child diagnosed with autism, 1 in 110. Ernie Els encourages you to learn the signs of autism at autismspeaks.org. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council. In 1977, in Johannesburg, South Africa, an 8-year-old boy picked up the game of golf from his father. By the age of 9, he was already outplaying him. The odds of that same boy then making it to the US and European Pro Golf Tours? 1 in 7 million. The odds of the Big Easy winning the Open Championship once and the US Open Championship twice? 1 in 780 million. The odds of this professional golfer having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 110. Ernie Els encourages you to learn the signs of autism at autismspeaks.org. Early diagnosis can make a lifetime of difference. Autism Speaks. It's time to listen. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
More with Clyde Lewis and Ground Zero Radio on FM News 101 KXL. Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis.
Cliff High is my guest here on Ground Zero. The numbers to call 503-417-9595 or 1-877-733-1011. You kind of alluded to it earlier, Cliff. You were talking about some sort of a famine. It's going to happen in Europe. What about the famine in Europe?
No, it's planetary. It's not simply in Europe. It's going to be planetary. There's nothing that can be done to avoid it. The mathematics are assured of it. If you look at the global grain harvest going back only as far as 1997 and up to date, you realize that we're now working in a deficit that's 7 years on. For the past 7 years, the planet has consumed more grain than it's produced. And so that's at the core of everything. Plus, we now have weather indicators that we're going to hit into an ice age. Whether it's a mini ice age or a full-blown one, we can't tell at this stage. But that's going to put huge pressures on the food over these next couple of years. So people have got to get really smart about their own food sources, because you cannot count on anybody to be your food producer. The government won't be able to provide for you. The government, that idea is absurd, especially now that the government is now afraid of its own citizenry, and therefore will be looking to protect the small minion class and let the rest of us fend for ourselves. So we're faced with a rather nasty set of futures. As you alluded to, we can all feel it coming, and so what are we to do? We need to approach things rationally and I think organize ourselves a little bit better. And I think that the experience of the Occupy Everything movement that we're seeing go out there, Occupy Earth as I like to characterize it, offers us a self-organizing collective that may offer hope for the first time in decades. Perhaps over 100 years, we've got a brief glimpse of hope where humans could come together. For instance, we have a famine in our future, but that famine only exists because of the current structure of the currency and the distribution system. It does not exist because of the number of mouths we have to feed and the amount of food to feed those mouths. We have a glut of food, a huge surplus of food, if we would get the bankers and the weird distribution system out of the way and treat our species and ourselves as rational beings. Make any sense?
It makes a lot of sense. You're right. I mean, that's the thing, is that, in places where food is a scarcity, those in power control the who gets food and who doesn't get food. And I've always told people, people always challenge me, and we get into these religious discussions about Mark of the Beast and all this other stuff, and I say to them, look, you saw what happened with 9/11, how quickly people forgotten about how rights and privileges and the Constitution are all important. They threw it out the window because of safety. Now, if you're starving and somebody has the food, you do as the person who has the food says, or you grow and hunt. Now, if you can't grow and hunt, then you're going to be accepting whatever that's offered to you to get that food in your stomach. And I don't care who you are, but you're, being having this valor or this zeal that you think you have isn't going to last for much when you're hungry. And
go 4 days without food.
Exactly. Correct. And that's why I push this preparedness company that I push, because it's important that we have the food set aside. It's important that we have the water set aside, drugs set aside, and we have a plan for when these things happen, and they are indeed going to happen. Cliff High, my guest tonight on Ground Zero. We are taking your calls after the news. 503-417-9595. It's 503-417-9KXL or 1-877-733-1011. I know you have questions about the future. I know I do. There's a lot of things that he's uncovered with the software, and what he's finding is amazing. We'll be back with more. Keep it here on Ground Zero.
FM News 101 KXL.
The most news, the most traffic, the most weather, 24/7. This is FM News 101 KXL. Portland, Vancouver, Salem.
KXL News Time, 11 o'clock.
Fox News Radio, I'm Sal Giangrasso. The government's latest jobs numbers offer some encouraging news if you work in the private sector and discouraging signs if you work for the government.
On the plus side, 103,000 jobs were created in September, much better than the 59,000 that economists were expecting. And the August numbers, which had been reported flat, were revised to an increase of 57,000. But 45,000 of the jobs last month were simply striking Verizon workers going back to work. And the increase was not enough to move the unemployment rate, which stands at 9.1%. It's been stuck there for 3 months. The private sector added 137,000 jobs, but 34,000 government jobs were lost. In Washington, Mike Makowitz, Fox News Radio.
And for the long-term unemployed, something else to be concerned about.
In the face of more disappointing jobs numbers, the claim that employers, particularly those who advertise online, are discriminating against the unemployed. Dozens of hiring ads specify they are only interested in applicants who already have jobs. City, state, and federal lawmakers are rapidly drafting legislation. Critics say that's an overreaction that could turn the unemployed into a protected class and scare potential employers away from hiring.
Fox's Mike Tobin reporting from Chicago. The Justice Department's asking an appeals court to stop the state of Alabama from enforcing a strict immigration law. Critics say the law has caused some migrants to flee and opens the door to discrimination against legal residents. Lots of excitement's brewing in Milwaukee after the Brewers advanced to the National League Championship Series with a 3-2 10-inning victory over Arizona in the deciding fifth game of their division series.
We battle all year to get to the spot where we had the opportunity to come back here and get that home field advantage.
Brewers manager Ron Renicky, the Brewers will try to use it when they open their series against St. Louis Sunday afternoon. Saturday night, Detroit and the Rangers open their American League Championship Series in Texas. You're listening to Fox News Radio, fair and balanced.
This is the Evening Update from FM News 101 KXL.
I'm David Smeltzer, KXL News Time, 11:02. A peaceful end to a nearly 5-hour standoff in Salem. KXL's Jim Ferretti has the details.
Nearly an entire neighborhood was evacuated and a school was sent into lockdown after a man threatened to kill 2 people inside a manufactured home on Ellis Street Northeast.
Officers responded, established the perimeter. The occupants, besides the gunman, we believe were all able to just simply walk out to our officers.
Lieutenant Steve Burr says Robert McLean came out of the home at 2:30 without his gun.
And was taken into custody without incident. Neither he nor any of our officers were injured.
Nearby Hoover Elementary was also in lockdown for most of the day, but parents were allowed to pick up their kids after the surrender. Jim Ferretti, FM News 101 KXL.
A 12-year-old McMinnville boy who was babysitting several kids has been arrested in the death of one of them. Yamhill County District Attorney Bradley Berry says the 16-month-old child died of a traumatic head injury.
It's tragic. It's tragic from the sense of the loss of a small 16-month-old toddler, and it's tragic that the factual circumstance ultimately implicated a 12-year-old boy in causing the death.
That 12-year-old is in the juvenile detention center to protect the community, and they are looking for alternatives other than detention for the boy. Chapman Square is still crowded with the Occupy Portland protesters, even though they were supposed to leave this morning. The Portland Marathon has a permit to use that park over the weekend. The mayor says he is trying to work out a compromise that will accommodate everyone. Police say arrests will be a last resort. Thousands of people are gearing up for the Portland Marathon on Sunday. Greg LeBlanc, one of them. This is his 4th marathon and his 2nd in Portland. He says even though he has experience, he still hits the wall.
When there's 6 left and at 20 miles, you go, oh my gosh, it's too far to say I'm right around the corner, and it's close enough that you realize you should get it done. But about mile 20, you realize that you're tired.
And as for those protesters at Chapman Square, he says after 26.2 miles, he'll be glad to see them. Chapman Square is the end gathering spot for the runners. KXL News Time now 11:04. We'll check traffic and weather.
If you live in the Portland area, there's a very good chance you're very aware of By Nature all-natural and organic dog food. With a powerful mix of vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants, it promotes a strong immune system and a healthier, longer life for your pal. And you're probably also aware that By Nature is giving away free dog food for a year to one lucky dog owner every week until the end of October. Go to ByNatureDogs.com and sign up. After all, free is a pretty good deal, especially on really great dog food like By Nature. And while you're at the website, you should download our coupon for a really great limited time offer. You don't have to be lucky to take advantage of that. Remember, you are what you eat, and so is your pooch. So think all natural and organic. Think By Nature for more dog years.
You'll find all natural and organic By Nature products at Orchard's Feed Mill at 6017 Northeast 109th in Vancouver. For more information, go to ByNatureDogs.com.
Portland's most traffic 24/7. Still no major problems out there on the freeways. Everybody, looks like we got speed limit drives on no matter where you're heading. The KXL weather forecast.
We get a lot of dry time this weekend. A little fog in the morning on Saturday. Low of 53, high 66 though, with partly sunny weather in the afternoon. Some light rain busting in late Saturday night, early Sunday morning, then ending by about midday, high 64 Sunday. Look for more rain Monday and Tuesday. I'm KGW News Channel 8 meteorologist Matt Safino for KXL.
55 degrees in Portland. I'm David Smeltzer. Set a button to FM News 101 KXL and KXL.com.
Some of the scenes you will witness may appear to border on fantasy.
Stand by. You have 5 seconds. 5. Information is free. 4. 3. There is hope. 1.
The loudspeaker spoke up and said, "Wait, Jimmy." The loudspeaker spoke up and said, "Wait, Jimmy." The loudspeaker spoke up and said, "Wait, Jimmy." Give up. Give up. Give up. Give up. Give up. Wait, Jimmy. Wait, Jimmy. Wait, Jimmy.
I'm Clyde Lewis, and this is Ground Zero. Tonight, Cliff High is my guest on Ground Zero. We're taking your phone calls at 503-417-9595. That's local, 503-417-9KXL. Or you can call us toll-free, 1-877-733-1011. That's 1-877-733-1011 tonight to talk with Cliff High. A lot of interesting things being given out tonight on the show. Timelines to follow, things to prepare for. It's important that you do so. And Cliff, we were talking about the famine. Now, you were writing, and I was looking at this, and it really, really stunned me because it's going to take me a lot to stop eating meat. And you're talking about a meat die-off, or something's going to happen where we're going to have to think twice about the meat we eat. What is going on?
It's a combination of factors, not merely a single aspect that's going to influence this. We're going to be hit by, well, first off, it's as a species, it's kind of absurd to rely on meat as a protein source because the pyramid that consumes the amount of grain, it means that we restrict the amount of humans that could exist. But in any event, we're going to get tainted meat. We're going to get instances of disease being carried by meat in a way that we have yet to see. I mean, we're going to see I don't want to say a pandemic, but some serious, not merely recalls that will hit the continental United States, but, for instance, a situation that will develop somehow related to south of the equator that will affect both the North American and European markets for all kinds of meat, not just beef, for instance, in a serious way, in a reduction. And I'm not sure if it's going to be prions or some screwy, mad tuna disease, that kind of thing. We just don't have enough of a clue. We do know that we're within 30 to 40 days, I think. I'd have to go and check the timeline before it'll start showing up. It'll be after the, so it'll be about 45 days actually. It'll be after the November emotional shift from building tension into release language, and it may actually even be part of that. So it'll be prior to the Thanksgiving holidays in Canada and the United States. But the problem for us is that the event itself, the whole thing, will take months to unfold. So the initial language for it we're expecting about that time, not the full-blown event.
We've been seeing some pretext, and that's why I'm concerned, because we've been seeing some pretext with listeria outbreaks. And
yes.
I was reading about them and how they are actually killing people. We had, maybe 75 dead from listeria outbreaks, and many people who are infected with listeria don't even know they have it until it's too late.
Yeah, and this is the kind of thing that we have described very vaguely in the data. Our problem with tracking that down within the data is that we get to a level of where we're overwhelmed by details, and then it just becomes meaningless, and we can't really provide any more meaningful information that says, stay away from this or whatever, relative to where an individual reader may be. So what we are able to provide is a general sense that foods that are stored and so on, and we kept fresh through this period of time, need to be very examined, because at some point in the near future, it may come on out that you've consumed something that was tainted.
Oh, that sounds a little frightening, and yes, it would get me to rethink my position on how and when I consume meat or meat products.
Well, we also have the other issue now with meat. Now, let's be clear about that. Since the deliberate targeting of the nuclear industry globally to be the death knell, if you will, of the 99% by the powers that be, there is going to be a natural tendency for radiation to concentrate in the higher end of the food chain in the animals. This will be true both of sea animals and land animals. So cows, for instance, are going to concentrate radiation by eating all of the radiation that falls on the grass. And, for instance, tuna would eat other stuff that had concentrated the radiation, because it's at the higher end of the food chain. So as we go forward, and because that will become a real key issue for us, and especially as we go forward and more nuke problems develop due to earthquakes, artificial or natural, and other problems, the radiation levels and the exposure we're going to be facing are going to climb over these next couple of years if the powers that be have their way. We are at a juxtaposition at this point. We need to be really smart, and we need to acknowledge that we're facing some serious trials, but we can overcome them if we're a smart species and we pull together. Even if we're as disparate as the 99% and can't stand each other normally, that doesn't get in the way of all of us being cousins, because the enemy of my enemy is my cousin, and we're going to stand shoulder to shoulder in this.
Exactly. Let's go to Barbara now. Hi, Barbara. You're on Ground Zero with Cliff High. Go ahead.
Hi, Clive. Wonderful show tonight.
Thank you.
Hi, Cliff.
Hello.
Hi. I was wondering if you were able to see anything or have seen anything regarding genetic alterations in microorganisms or biological organisms.
That's one of those things that's almost like religion in terms of data. We see a lot of data that way, but it's all emotionally so hot, it becomes very difficult for us to look for the thin layer of nuance from which we can extract a prediction. So yes, we've got an inordinate amount of data in that line, all the nano stuff, the microparticulates, and potential threats. A lot of that language is associated with fear words, but we don't have anything that's so cohesive that it really makes sense to write about it.
Okay.
Makes sense?
Thank you. It sure does. Also, I was wondering if you know of any places in the United States that would be a relatively safe place to be during all this turmoil.
Sorry, that's not my line of country, because I think of things differently, that everybody's issue is different. I could advise two people. They may both move to the same place. One guy gets hit by a car, one doesn't. See, it's the individual karma, right?
Right, that's true. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for the call.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Let's go now to Larry. Hi, Larry. You're on Ground Zero.
Yes, hi, Clyde. Thanks for your show, buddy. I'm really soaking all this stuff in. Thanks to you and your guests. My question is, I heard you talk about the stock market, we've got money invested in our 401k, and I'm just kind of wondering, should we pull that money out, pay all of our bills off, and then sounds like store up on food?
I'm not a financial advisor. Everybody's financial situation is their own, and it's very difficult to be broad and basic or broad and meaningful about that. So the only thing that I can really rely on is to say that me personally, as a human, I'm a working stiff all my life. 58 years old. The last thing I would do is to have any money involved in any stock market, in anybody's screwy 401k abstract situation, because I don't trust any of the fellows up there, and I won't characterize them by using my normal profanity. I don't trust the bankers, and so I want to have anything I've worked hard for as close as possible to me, and that's just how I feel about it.
Okay, you've answered my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for calling. Let's go now to Kay. Kay, hi, you're on Ground Zero calling from Gold Bar, Washington tonight. Hi, Kay.
Hi, how are you?
Great.
And this is wonderful. Thank you for all this stuff all the time.
You bet.
Cliff, I'd like to ask a question. Kind of very similar to what the gentleman just before asked. According to the data, which would you do? Would you do things like at this point try to get in there and pay off that remainder of that credit card debt and this and that so that you're free and clear when this financial stuff hits the fan really bad? Or would you just try to stock up on food and gasoline and things like that if you had limited resources and, you know?
Yeah, if I had limited resources, the last thing I would do is give any portion of them to bankers. I would come to the same conclusion that I personally came to over a decade ago, that the credit card as an industry is a usurious scam that does nothing but bankrupt the people morally and ethically and financially, and I wouldn't put any money towards them. I'd let them try and come and get me for the money, and I'd fight them tooth and nail all the way down just to cause them the aggravation, even though I know the court system is loaded in their favor. And I would do everything I could to protect my immediate family members, with the idea of being on the immediacy level, in the sense that, you know, food, shelter, you know, clean water, health care, that kind of thing.
Thank you. And the WebBot does not show any help like coming from like the dinar revaluing or anything like that trying to help us out, right?
No. I look at things from a mega level. Okay, here's our problem. If you were to go up to a high enough viewpoint, look down on the planet, you would find out one thing: that it is an entirely surrounded by a complex currency system, but it is basically one system. There is no wealth on the planet that doesn't exist on the planet, so you can't have wealth from one part of the planet bail out the vast majority of us on the other. The United States and all of the people in Europe and everybody that participated in the central banking and warfare model have built up a huge giant debt that can never, ever be repaid, and that realization is known at the level of the powers that be, and it's gradually dawning on everybody else as this whole system crashes. So no, the dinar's revaluing isn't going to bring in any value from anybody. And by the way, the Rothschilds, Bauer family, have gone on in and bought up all the Iraqi oil and all of that anyway, so they now own all of the dinars, and there will never be a revaluation that doesn't suit them.
Okay, that totally makes sense. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kay, for calling tonight. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye-bye. And we'll be back with more. Cliff High is my guest tonight on Ground Zero. Some fascinating stuff coming from him. Coming up, some other things we want to cover. The increase of the military inoculation. That's something that's ahead. And some other things, too, to cover. All the problems and things that are heading towards us. The pop culture, what we're going to be seeing in the future. Yes, this is very accurate and very interesting. Tonight, Cliff High. HalfPastHuman.com. I'm back with more. Call in tonight. 503-417-9595 or 1-877-733-1011. That's toll free. 1-877-733-1011. We'll be back with more from Cliff High right here on Ground Zero.
Got an opinion? Call KXL now. 503-417-9KXL or 877-733-1011.
Clyde Lewis here. You know, for the last couple of months, I have shared with you that homeowners need to be careful on what company they select to work on their home. Now, if you're planning on replacing your windows, siding, or roofing this fall, don't wait any longer. Bad weather is coming, and you need to be prepared. Saving energy saves you money. Call Amazing Siding and Windows today. They have been in business for 15 years. They have an A-plus rating with a Better Business Bureau, and they have thousands of happy customers. Now, if you're getting bids on siding including Hardy Plank, energy-efficient windows, or quality roofing, you can call Amazing at 1-800-474-3464. That's 1-800-474-3464. Right now, their amazing offers for a house full of Energy Star windows for only $49.50 installed. You can't beat that. Call 1-800-474-3464 for details. It's good to fix up your ground zero. Do it now. Call Amazing Siding and Windows. They're the good guys. 1-800-474-3464. That number again is 1-800-474-3464.
In 1977, an 8-year-old boy picked up the game of golf from his father. The odds of that same boy winning the U.S. Open twice, 1 in 1.2 billion. The odds of him having a child diagnosed with autism, 1 in 110. Ernie Els encourages you to learn the signs of autism at autismspeaks.org. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council. In 1977, in Johannesburg, South Africa, an 8-year-old boy picked up the game of golf from his father. By the age of 9, he was already outplaying him. The odds of that same boy then making it to the US and European Pro Golf Tours? 1 in 7 million. The odds of the Big Easy winning the Open Championship once and the US Open Championship twice? 1 in 780 million. The odds of this professional golfer having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 110. Ernie Els encourages you to learn the signs of autism at autismspeaks.org. Early diagnosis can make a lifetime of difference. Autism Speaks. It's time to listen. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
This is your GPS unit. We have new directions for KXL. Go to 101 on the FM dial and preset us there for the clearest way to hear KXL.
KXL is now on FM 101.
To Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis on FM News 101 KXL. This is not a test. It is the future. Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis.
My guest is Cliff High tonight on Ground Zero, halfpasthuman.com. The numbers to call, 503-417-9595 or 1-877-733-1011. That's a toll-free number. I wanted to talk about how I was looking things over. There's also, from what you see, and I guess with the words and the languages, an increase of military propaganda, both from Hollywood and with video games. Is this something that we see in the future as well?
That's their plan.
Back to Ground Zero with...
Whether or not they're actually able to accomplish it, given the shift in events, is hard to say. A lot of our data is not fixed. We don't do such things as prophecy. So if I were to do a report 3 weeks ago and then run the spiders again today, even examining those same subjects, everything would have changed, and the report that I would do today would not be the same as 3 weeks ago based on the data set, because things shift over time.
Sure.
So our view is that it's just not a fixed state. We're at a particular junction where it appears as though there is more of a level of flexibility and range of motion. And so a lot of the things that we have written about in the past that were planned by the powers that be, the plans may still be implemented, but I've got to be real clear in saying that that's their plan, and it may not necessarily succeed. So if, for instance, one was in the movie business, well, okay, good news. There's going to be a lot of opportunity as the military starts trying to do major propaganda for the powers that be over these next couple of quarters here. We tend to see think in 3-month periods of time as they get ready to try and get us all ready for their plan of basically totalitarian control across the planet, which is the goal here for those of us that are allowed to survive the incredible nuclear hazards that they have planned for us in the future. Now, if we all got real smart, we could bring down the banking system tomorrow, and we could establish across this planet a very cantankerous, argumentative, global, omni-humanity democracy that would bumble its way through for a number of years and face all kinds of horrific sorts of problems, but not the problems that the powers that be are aiming at us, and with their machinations like setting off bombs to create Fukushima.
Exactly. I just think that it's true. They put all these things in front of us. They try to stop us at every angle, and people think that they have no choice, but they do have a choice. I was at the occupation today, and I was very surprised at how a number of people who I talked with were very, very adamant in saying that they didn't want to have anyone hijacking it. They didn't want to have any political viewpoint tarnishing it. The partisan left-right paradigm is dead, they believe, and I hope that sustains, because I'm really sick and tired of that situation. I mean, I find it interesting that we have a president who sustains and supports the Bush doctrine, and no one is there rising up and saying anything about it except this group saying that Obama is Wall Street, and yet we have a group of people saying, oh, but this is the opposite of the Tea Party. It's the opposite. It's actually not the Tea Party, and it's not even affiliated. They want to move forward and say, we're tired of the rhetoric, the left-right paradigm. We need to destroy it today. We need to destroy it tomorrow. We needed to destroy it a long time ago.
Correct, and we need to get at the minion class, and most specifically, we need to hold accountable the people that are in the mainstream press that have lied through omission and lied through commission these last years to support the powers that be at to the detriment of every other human on this planet.
The empire needs to be honest, and it is that news organization. It's the news organizations that are placed there to protect the people with the public trust as public trustees. They no longer do that. They're editorializing, and they also, as you say, omit a lot of things. They don't talk about things. They don't bring up and ask the hard questions. It's all softball, and that's why the government gets to do what it does, is because no one brings attention to the inconsistencies, the doublespeak, and all of that. I try to do that on my program, and you try to do with what you do, and I really appreciate that. It just needs to be done more often, and we need to be vicious about it, I think.
Fierce, not vicious.
Fierce.
We got to be very careful of our language.
You are, yes, you are the man that's in the language business, Cliff, so I stand corrected.
They control us that way. They control us through language. As long as we allow that with their spin and don't call them on their words, they are controwing our minds.
Exactly.
That's why I'm just really dedicated and fierce about that.
All right.
But I'm not vicious. You note the difference.
Okay, fierce. Cliff High is my guest tonight on... How about passion? Cliff High is my guest tonight on Ground Zero. We're going to get to your calls right after the news. 503-417-9595 or 1-877-733-1011. We'll be back with more. Keep it here on Ground Zero.
FM News 101 KXL.
most news, the most traffic, the most weather, 24/7. This is FM News 101 KXL.
Currently 56 degrees in Portland. KXL News Time, 11:30.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pam Puso. Developments in the case of a missing 10-month-old girl in Kansas City, Missouri.
Deborah Bradley says police have told her that she has failed a lie detector test and is involved in her baby's disappearance. She denies it.
Fox Radio's Jennifer Kuiper. Authorities searched a landfill for a second time. Rebels in Libya hoping the hometown of Muammar Gaddafi falls soon. The city of Sirte under assault from all sides. Gaddafi's whereabouts are unknown. While facing criticism over a controversial gun smuggling program known as Fast and Furious, Attorney General Eric Holder is firing back.
The AG is reacting to Republicans saying federal agents were accessories to murder because they allowed guns to cross the Mexican border in an attempt to follow them to drug cartels. Holder calls that irresponsible and inflammatory rhetoric.
Fox Radio's Steve Taylor in Washington. Fox News, we report, you decide.
From Portland's breaking news, traffic and weather station, FM News 101 KXL, I'm David Smeltzer. We got more of Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis straight ahead right here on KXL. And now it's Portland's most traffic 24/7. And now looking on the east side, Banfield up to speed there. 205, same thing, a speed limit drive the whole stretch of the road. And no problems on the west side coming inbound on the Sunset Highway. The KXL weather forecast.
Light rain over the Portland area this evening. Those are going to end overnight. We're looking at a partly sunny Saturday with a warmer day with a high about 66 degrees. We'll look at 64 on Sunday, some showers early, then partly sunny, more rain early next week. I'm KGW News Channel 8 meteorologist Matt Safino for KXL.
Right now, 54 degrees in Hillsborough and Salem and Portland, it's 56. News happens fast. Check back several times each day and don't miss a thing. I'm David Smeltzer. Set a button to FM News 101 KXL.
Are you among the many people who suffer from sleep disorders such as insomnia, obstructive sleep apnea, or snoring? These are problems that are not only disturbing your rest, they could be affecting your health. If you've reached the point where you're seeking a solution, I strongly suggest that you get the help of board-certified sleep specialists with Oregon Sleep Specialist. Oregon Sleep Specialist will identify your specific sleep disorder and provide you with the proper means of treating it. For your convenience, Oregon Sleep Specialist can provide you with a self-administered home sleep test that can be carried out in the privacy and comfort of your own home, and costs about the same as a copay. Plus, with Oregon Sleep Specialist, you don't need a referral, and most types of insurance are accepted. So if you think you need help to better your sleep, contact Oregon Sleep Specialist at 866-285-4245, or find out more on the web at orsleep.com. Oregon Sleep Specialist. Improving your health through better sleep.
More with Clyde Lewis and Ground Zero Radio on FM News 101 KXL.
Behold the pale horse. Behold the pale horse. Behold the man who sat on him was death. The man who sat on him was death. The man who sat on him was death. And hell followed with him. And hell followed with him. And hell followed with him.
today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
9565, 9760, 15160, and 15425 kilohertz.
Destroy that which is not perfect. Destroy that which is not perfect. Destroy that which is wrong.
This national feeling is good, but it won't come for much, and it won't last unless it's grounded in thoughtfulness and knowledge. We will always never forget. We will always remember. We will never forget. And some things have changed. And some things have changed.
I'm Clyde Lewis. This is Ground Zero. My guest tonight is Cliff High. Cliff High, of course, halfpasthuman.com. The numbers to call tonight, 503-417-9595 or 1-877-733-1011. The future, what does it hold? Well, Cliff is telling us, and we're getting some really good information, the sound information from Cliff tonight. We're going to take some phone calls now. A lot of people waiting to talk to you. Let's go to Sharina calling from Hawaii. Hi, Sharina. You're on Ground Zero.
Hi. Hi, Cliff. I'm so excited to be talking to you. I've been getting your web bots and listening to every radio show you're on. Thank you for what you're doing. My question is Hawaii. I hardly ever see you saying anything about Hawaii, and we'd like to know what's in store for us, too. There's some things that are obvious. We get our food from the mainland, most of it. But anything specific that you have seen for us?
Sorry about, having to be sparse in discussing things about such cool places as Hawaii. I mean, I love the Big Island. I got friends on Hilo and all of this kind of thing. And the Hawaii, of course, is at 19.45 degrees in latitude, so it's at a very key point on the planet. This is good and bad. I mean, you've got a huge vortex of energy that comes out. It's at one of the vertices that is at the underlying structural basically the structure for the planet itself. This is going to be a real key for you guys. The only thing that we have showing within the data comes from the Terra entity relative to the expansion that Hawaii is, and it was just sort of an oblique reference, that Hawaii would be to the north of this, what we're characterizing as a crack in the Pacific Plate, a new one that's going to appear. And as a consequence of being to the north of it, will not be seriously affected by the tsunami, because it's actually to the northeast of where the earthquake and the crack is going to appear, and the tsunami will head to the southeast because of the depth of the ocean. So this is good. Hawaii is going to face the same kind of problems as the rest of us, and will be as vulnerable relative to the sun problems and to the food problems as the people on that in that area allow themselves to be. So if everybody there keeps going along as business as usual, the consequences will be rather dire. We need to really get serious about this kind of stuff now.
You got that, Sharina?
Yeah. Thank you, Cliff.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And, I'm really glad you got to talk to me. I don't understand it, believe me, but I'm pleased for you.
Which reminds me, we're looking at Hawaii, we're looking at the Pacific crack, and we're looking at all this stuff. People here in Oregon are somewhat occupied with the idea, and I know you live in an area too. I know that we had the earthquake there near Olympia back a while ago. It was on the leap year. What are we looking at for the Northwest?
A really devastating earthquake is in our future, too. The only issue for us relative to our data is whether it's going to be up here, or whether it's going to be down in Southern California. The descriptor for it is part of this earthquake that may be one or two earthquakes. We really can't separate them, as I've discussed before. But that's going to destroy bridges for 1,000 miles. So we had such an experience here, as you point out. We had the Nisqually earthquake, which is like 9 miles away from where I am.
That was my first one I ever felt in Oregon. I moved here and I saw the buildings. We felt the 6.0, and it was underground so far that it didn't cause any damages, but we did see the ripple of the earth coming from your area.
And we lost a bridge here about 11 miles the other direction that took a year to replace. So that's what we have to be prepared for, is that the earthquakes that we're going to get with the expansion here will take down a lot of our infrastructure, and we'll have to do things in an entirely different way as we struggle to overcome some of the debilitating damage to bridges separating from land. They won't necessarily fall into the river or anything, but if they can't connect to the roadway, they don't do as much good.
Yeah, and here in Oregon, we are the city of bridges, and we have both the east and west, and it can be cut off. And that's what I always worry about. Is I'm on the east side, but I'd love to get over to the west side because that's where the city is. So
boats.
Yeah, lots of boats. Exactly, lots of boats. Let's go to Jonathan calling from Rochester, New York. Thank you, Jonathan, for staying up late. You're on the air with Cliff. Go ahead.
Hi, Cliff. I'm a 20-year-old college student, and I'm just curious what you had what was in the data for anything about the education system or any...
No, you're in the schooling system. You're in the schooling system. You need to separate your education from the schooling and recognize that if you don't control the language, all you're doing is you're getting into a situation where you've been sold the idea that if you sit there long enough, the debt that you're accumulating and sitting there that these people have you paying for will somehow be repaid by what you'll learn. I seriously doubt that.
I understand. I was just curious, what do you see happening for people, or what can I expect to experience for someone my age in the next coming years?
If you wanted to say 20 years, I would say you're going to, on one sense, you're going to experience struggle and hardship that other generations before you have known, that your generation was somehow thought to escape, and it will be harder for you because of that thought that they would somehow escape it. But it's going to make you tough. And it won't build character, but it'll draw that character out of your generation in a way that will be quite staggering. You need to read the book called The Fourth Turning. It's by these two guys, I always forget their name, but it talks about the generational issues and what we've just hit, and specifically your generation, which is the explorer generation. We go through these waves as humans, and especially it's been tracked in our language and so on, and the generation we're fighting now is the acquisitor generation that wants to acquire, and is exemplified by huge amounts of hoarding, digidollars and power and everything else. The generation that comes after them has always been the explorer generation that takes humanity to new places, but they always pay that price of having to suffer along the way. Read history and you'll see.
I definitely have tried.
Jonathan, I appreciate your call. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
You bet. We're now going to go to Michael. Michael calling from Mossy Rock, Washington. Hi, Michael. You're on Ground Zero.
Hi, Clyde. Hi, Cliff.
Hello. Talking to all these neighbors.
That's awesome.
Really appreciate the breadth and depth of the information you've been giving tonight. I've followed the web button, the SHAPE reports for a while, and if I recall correctly, you were... there's something in there about a radiation situation affecting food sometime next year.
Correct.
Can you expand on that?
Yeah, it's not just going to be Fukushima. Fukushima is going to be joined by some other nuclear plants that are going to be damaged in the expansion of the planet. As the planet expands, we're going to be hit by these earthquakes that will cause problems around nuke plants all over the planet, and we're going to be faced with radiation impacting the food supply. The data has been clear that our food supply was going to be at risk from probably about 2002, but the nature of that risk was unclear because we didn't really have the context defined as to how the radiation would affect it. but the radiation that we're going to be getting is going to be multifaceted. It's not only going to be things like cesium entering into the meat through the grass into that level of food supply, but the way in which our food is grown for us by these mega farms is going to contribute by tending to concentrate radiation all along the process. And I can give you a weird example that really is not it's more of a fantasy example, but it gives you the idea. Radiation comes down, mushrooms concentrate it, mushrooms might be gathered, the mushrooms might make their way into a feed source that goes into chickens, and chickens concentrate the radiation, and thus that's how it gets into humans. It's a weird, goofy example, but it does give you the idea that that's how it's going to end up concentrating into the food. It will be quite severe along with everything else. The weather shutting down our ability to grow grains. We're going to have to start swapping over to new methods of growing. The Canadians are really smart to start looking at whole building growing operations for cities, because we're going to be forced into this by our ice age.
Wow. It's amazing.
The weather situation next year, have you got some thoughts on that? I'm hearing that there could be major ice storms and so forth very early in the Midwest.
Yes, indeed. I suspect that will be the case, and I suspect that they'll also continue way later than anybody has any expectation for. They won't have a spring there the way we didn't really have a spring here this year. Only next year in the Midwest, when they don't have that spring and there's still wet, sort of sloppy snow on the ground in June, they're going to be really surprised when early in July the snow starts all over again. And it's that kind of year we're facing. So, I mean, it's one of those things where, the little sayings are good, and it is, if you're not paranoid, you're not paying attention. You should be paranoid about your food and doing something about it, and more than that, you should be doing something about the food of, not you particularly, I don't mean to get on your case, but I mean in general sense, we all need to be doing something about the food for everybody else around us. This way we will have less hungry people around annoying us when things get really tough later on.
This is why we need to have a storage house of storable foods that last for a long time. I know the Portland Preparedness Center has them available, and you can go there. It's going to be open tomorrow. That's tomorrow from 10 to 6. Just 503-252-2525. I know Michael will be there, or at least someone will be there to take care of him. 72nd Gleason. What's that?
Michael and Robert.
Yeah, Michael and Robert will be there, exactly.
Appreciate what you do, Cliff. Thank you.
Thank you so much for calling.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Take care. Bye-bye. And then we're going to take a break right now. We'll be back with more. Cliff High will be here, and we'll be answering the final questions of the night at 503-417-9595 or 1-877-733-1011. We'll be back with more. Keep it here on Ground Zero.
Got an opinion? Call KXL now. 503-417-9KXL or 877-733-1011.
In 1977, an 8-year-old boy picked up the game of golf from his father. The odds of that same boy winning the U.S. Open twice, 1 in 1.2 billion. The odds of him having a child diagnosed with autism, 1 in 110. Ernie Els encourages you to learn the signs of autism at autismspeaks.org. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council. In 1977, in Johannesburg, South Africa, an 8-year-old boy picked up the game of golf from his father. By the age of 9, he was already outplaying him. The odds of that same boy then making it to the US and European Pro Golf Tours? 1 in 7 million. The odds of the Big Easy winning the Open Championship once and the US Open Championship twice? 1 in 780 million. The odds of this professional golfer having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 110. Ernie Els encourages you to learn the signs of autism at autismspeaks.org. Early diagnosis can make a lifetime of difference. Autism Speaks. It's time to listen. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Well, let's see, your paperwork shows you have the largest news staff and the most traffic and weather reports around. And now you can be heard everywhere, inside tunnels, buildings, and on the MAX lines. And you seem to like 101 FM. So, Mr. KXL, you are hired.
This is Ground Zero on FM News 101 KXL. This is not a test. It is the future. Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis.
Posted on the front page of groundzeromedia.org. Groundzeromedia.org. Go there and check out the videos that I have put up there. One is from Joni DeRoshi, and the other is from Rod Harrell. And they are both videos depicting the Occupy Portland group. And what we had going on. We went to the encampment today. Be able to check out where the hearts and minds are of the Occupy Portland groups, and just check it out. It's also, if you go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/Ground Zero Radio, you'll also be able to check it out as well. Cliff High is my guest tonight on Ground Zero. We go now to Sarah. Sarah, hi, you're on Ground Zero. Go ahead.
Hello, Clyde. Hello, Cliff.
Hello.
Okay, now, I was listening the first hour, but I was not able to call in at that time. And Clyde asked you at one point if what you were doing was scrying, and you explained why it was not. However, I'd say that you're doing something much more basic. I would say that you are doing no more or less than magic.
Well, it'd be how you would define magic. I'm a linguist.
Well, the brain is a computer that processes far more than your bots ever can. And you see,
I would agree with that.
Ancient disciplines of magic have been oriented toward centering the brain to, disciplining the brain to work in certain ways. And I would say that in a way that's like programming. And
sure, that's actually the basis for neurolinguistics.
You've pretty much quantified magic. And
never thought of it that way, but you have a point. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when I heard all that. I was.
If magic were to be defined as a discipline, then I would certainly agree with you, because we use a rigorous discipline in the work here. If magic were to be defined as a extrasensory ability to a certain extent, the magic exists in both senses, or both sides of our equation. Then, not only do I participate in that at some small degree, but we're aggregating it from vast quantities of people. So, I mean, maybe I'm feeling a little guilty here, but maybe I'm not so much quantifying or making magic into a science as sort of like thieving it from everybody else.
Well, that's what magic does. It uses energy, whether you want to call it thieving or borrowing or using or sharing or recycling. It's using the energy that is there. And people often speak about the collective consciousness. This is yet one more way to tap into the collective consciousness, and it's more likely to be understood or at least believed by people because it's using modern scientific tools.
Sarah?
I grant you that. That's also one of its weaknesses, and people put too much faith in it. We're wrong half the time.
Yeah, I'm amazed at the people who are calling you with these questions. It's like having a psychic on, and I want to hear more about what you're doing, not what you think might happen to one particular question. I wanted to hear more about the process.
Well, we tried to do that in the beginning, and that's what we did. So, we tried to get as much as we can. A lot of people want to know the future. In fact, I got to go to another call, Sarah. I appreciate the call. We're going to go to Felipe now, calling from Kerala, India. Felipe, hi, you're on Ground Zero.
Hi, how are you? This is Pradeep. My question is, does Cliff see the minions taking the peoples of India and Pakistan into a war?
No, our data does not show that. It does show that Pakistan will be heavily involved and India will be pushed that way, but we see that there is some kind of a rigidification or a repudiation of that mindset as part of a social movement that is already underway in India. I don't have enough data about India to be specific, but we know that the social movement has already started there the way it started here in the United States with this Occupy business. But no, it does not show directly a war between the cousins of India and Pakistan.
Thank you.
I appreciate the call. Thank you so much for calling from Kerala tonight. Thank you so much. Kerala, India. You've reached the entire world, Cliff.